continuous about where are the wideouts, because that is the one area that the Colts have yet to address. But outside of that, it's been, rather stoic, and that's not a bad thing. Sometimes that's not bad. We'll get into it. Casey Valle, you're going to join me here in just a couple of minutes, and we'll catch up with from Casey's observation. He's, of course, with the Colts. You hear him oftentimes along with Bill Brooks, kind of breaking down what happens in camp. We'll catch up with Casey in just a minute here. Tom Dienhart going to join the program today because Purdue is very close. As a matter of fact, probably imminent now to naming a new athletic director. And Mike Babinski, who I think we'll probably have on the show here in the next week or so, on his way out. And I think this is a very interesting time when you are bringing in an athletic director within Division I athletics. It reminds me a little bit of this. If you look at working in sports talk radio, if you look at working in just sports media in general, no longer are you a radio host. No longer are you, by the way, this mic in my cam feels very overmodulated. Eddie, does that overmodulate by chance, or is that just my headset?
Yes,
Not
it
the
is.
live program on the air. Okay. We're going to turn that down just a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. No longer are we just a radio host or just a talk show host. Media now, any job that you're in, no longer are you just a newspaper writer. You're a multimedia journalist. Your job, when you do, no matter what line of work it is, and this is not news to any of you listening, you know it. Your job is to make sure that you are posting content on social media, that you're posting videos, that you are, and not even necessarily with what it is that's your normal beat. You are the Los Angeles Angels beat writer for the Orange County Register. Your job is not just to write articles for the Orange County Register. It's to have Instagram videos of the Angels players when they make an appearance at Disneyland. It is to put something up on Facebook on the station page when you're at the John Wayne Airport and something funny is happening near the Orange Julius. It's all of that. And if you're an athletic director today in Division I college athletics, sure, part of your job is coming up with scheduling. Sure, part of your job is budgetary. But now it's beyond that. It's navigating through and figuring out the NIL aspect of it. It's coming up with essentially a salary cap. It's figuring out and coming up with a spreadsheet to know the 4 wide receivers we have this year, 3 of them are likely going to get opportunity to make more money than what we can offer next year under our NIL collective budget. And so therefore, now part of that's the coach's job as well, but they're going to come to you and ask you that money. They're going to ask you where that's coming from. You've got to know and be able to discuss and forecast the hopper, the treasure chest. And that is a major part of Division I sports today that didn't exist, at least in the legal standpoint, 5 to 10 years ago. In a school like Indiana, I think so much is discussed, rightly and understandably so, with Curt Cignetti about how Indiana was able to bring over the JMU transfers and have this culture with Indiana sports and the preparation of Curt Cignetti and the X's and O's of knowing and anticipating exactly when and where the opposition was going to throw the ball and whatever else, and how locked in Indiana was in their preparation. And that's the majority of the battle for sure. But the other thing that people, we've mentioned it, we've talked about it, I'm not going to say sleep on with Indiana, but because Indiana had so many results from an on-the-field preparatory standpoint, what wasn't discussed is the fact that Indiana, from the NIL standpoint, was ahead of, and yes, Indiana did not spend in year number 1 of Curt Cignetti. There are numbers that are way overinflated. But the team that you just saw that won the national championship, that veteran team, there was a lot of investment in it in terms of the transfer portal, notably with Fernando Mendoza. And that's because Indiana saw this coming down the pike. And Indiana was able to put together an NIL collective. In the initial years of NIL, the ruling was a kid can go out and make money based on his name, his image, and his likeness. So if he wants to get a part-time job at the Von Lee movie theater and they want to put a sign up that says Nick Cottongen of Indiana Baseball works here at the Von Lee and pay Nick an extra $200 a month, that was what everybody was duped into believing was the source of this whole desire. Schools like Indiana were able to look at it and say, if they're opening the door to that, then it's not just one ray of light that's coming through. It's this mass rush of a sunbeam that's coming through. And so if that's the case, there's not going to be a gray area here. There's just going to be a wide open, wild, wild west landscape real estate about the financial compensation for players and being able to say that the university itself is facilitating out of a hopper the money for a name, image, and likeness. And even though the university itself might not be the one that's writing the check and handing it over, they can do what's called a collective, where then that is facilitated towards bringing a player in and saying, if you come here, our collective is such that we can get you the most money for your name, image, and likeness. Indiana was ahead of the curve on that. Indiana was well prepared for it, and that's not to say that Minnesota or Iowa State or Georgia Tech or Purdue are not aware now or understanding or grasping or designing how to do exactly that. But it is rather to say that they are playing catch-up a little bit in that regard. And that's fine because these things are cyclical in terms of what's the it school and where and booster fatigue is going to become a thing. We've talked about that. But if you are becoming an athletic director at a Big Ten program, and notably at a Big Ten program that, with all due respect, seems athletically underfunded versus the peers, then a big part of that job description is as much about how to build that and then sustain that as it is about the old days of making sure your TV and radio contracts are in place and making sure that you've got the proper number of teams in your pre-conference schedule. And I think talking to Tom Dienhart, which we're going to do here coming up in about 20 minutes, about that job description, and then possibly talking to Mike Babinski on his way out about how his job changed over the years. I mean, when Mike Babinski, during his tenure as the athletic director at Purdue, the biggest hot-button issue that he's had to deal with has been, the big thing that he's had to think about was the coaching, football coaching hires. Now it's beyond that, and he's on his way out of that, and that's because he's of retirement age, not because he got sick and said, I'm not doing this anymore. But the reality is that that's part of the job now. The biggest part of the job is figuring out that stuff. Speaking of college football now, Eddie Garrison, the other voice you hear on this program.
Greetings and salutations.
So let me get this straight. Greetings and salutations to you as well, Eddie. I want to get to this and make sure that I've got this correct, okay? I want to make sure that I've got correct that Indiana and Notre Dame didn't used to play each other in college football, and then they played each other in college football one time, and then eventually Indiana under Jerry DiNardo got a quarterback that used to play at Notre Dame, and everybody got excited, but that was kind of a blip in the radar, and Indiana went back to being Indiana, and then eventually they played each other in the college football playoff in year number one of Curt Cignetti, who went on College Game Day ahead of time and kind of pushed his chest out a little bit, and then Notre Dame really kind of had their way with Indiana. It was not in any way, shape, or form a close contest. It probably could have been more lopsided than it was. And then they had each other on the schedule, and everybody got excited. And then Indiana won the national title, and Indiana said, you know what, the bottom line is this. We believe in actually getting those wins ahead of time, using those games to ramp up and condition for our conference schedule. That's what's the most important to us. So we now don't need Notre Dame anymore. We don't need that to escalate our profile. So we're done with Notre Dame. And so they told Notre Dame they want to see other people, and Notre Dame said, that's fine, we'll go see other people. And Notre Dame went back and hooked up with their ex that they have been partnered with for like 100 years. Is that basically, did I get that right?
That sounds about right, yeah. In a Cliff Notes version, yes.
So Indiana is breaking their partnership with Notre Dame in terms of their college football schedule, and USC will now replace Indiana on the schedule, and that means that Notre Dame will be playing USC as they had done in the past, but they will be doing so earlier in the year as opposed to later in the year. But we'll get into more of that later on in the program as well. Right now, and I looked over, and I got to tell you, I saw a Sony Jambox. I saw a small iPod. I saw a little clock radio.
They call those
AM,
nanos,
FM.
those iPod nanos.
Nanos, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I saw all kinds of radios at the 10-yard line being coordinated, and I said to myself, there's got to be somebody around here that's coordinating all these. And then yes, it's Casey Vallier, the coordinator for radio for the Indianapolis Colts, who comes over to join us once again. And might I add, Casey Vallier is more than just, and you host shows when it comes to the Colts. Yep. You're a jack of all trades.
Podcast, all that stuff.
I was just saying, you've now got to be a multimedia star when you work in what we do. But you also are a football coach, right?
That is right. I am the de facto offensive line coach for the third grade Huskies up here in Hamilton Heights tackle football. Tackle football. So it's the first year of tackle for my oldest son. And now, don't judge me out here, but I'm a bit of a fraud when it comes to football. I never played. Went to Noblesville. It was one of those things you got to pick a sport early because I'm not an elite athlete. So I played baseball forever. And so football-wise, I can come out here and watch and all that stuff. There you go, Eddie. I appreciate it. And so when they asked if I could coach, I said, I'd gladly help out. I said, technique-wise, I'm probably not going to be as advanced as you might think since I work in the NFL. I'm stout. Sure.
Eddie doesn't like when I call him stout. I think you're stout.
I heard that whole conversation a couple of weeks ago. I'm with you. Stout's fine. You
right.
can call me stout. I'm good with that.
Fire hydrant. If I said you're a fire hydrant, would that offend you?
No. I mean, because I know what I am. I'm husky. That's a word.
They're the Huskies up there,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
Now, when I was a kid, Casey, just so you know, when I was a kid, there were two kinds of blue jeans. One were called Toughskins.
Yeah.
And Toughskins had extra patching in the knee so that you could slide around on the gym floor. They were awesome.
Yeah, I wish they had those still.
And then the other ones they had were called Huskies.
Yeah.
And Huskies were for the big kids.
That's right.
And if you had a pair of Huskies, you were Husky.
Yeah.
So so basically, I wouldn't just walk up to you and say, "Hey, fat guy."
Right.
But you say Husky. That
Husky.
sounds relatively complimentary, right?
Absolutely.
See, I wouldn't call Eddie fat.
No,
Insulated?
not at all.
Insulated?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far I want to go on this insulated comment, but yeah, Eddie. I mean, don't take it offensively, bud.
Be careful, Casey. I like you, so don't be siding too much with Jake.
Well, here's what we know. Eddie is thin-skinned. His insulation is not.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we know.
We do know that.
Okay, Casey, we already here are a quarter of the way through practice, which is amazing. Well, a little more than that because they're going to go today till what time?
11:30 today, so a little bit longer. An hour and a half we got. So we got a little over an hour left.
Okay, so 15 minutes into it, we just heard the air horn. What are we looking for now? As things are ramped up, that would mean today's protocol or today's procedures are what?
So, we're going to see a little bit more one-on-ones with the offensive and defensive line. This is kind of, when you talk to offensive and defensive linemen, they say camp doesn't start till the pads come on. Yesterday, we didn't see as many. I thought yesterday was an interesting day because we saw a lot of that live tackle time with the third team. So they did live reps, and that was the longest live rep session I can remember in a couple years.
Third-team offense, third-team defense?
Yeah, third-team offense, third-team
which
defense.
quarterback was more often handling that?
So that would have been that'll have been number 4 in your roster. And
that's the kid out of North Dakota State, right?
Yeah, Easton Stick is number 4. So right now he kind of slots in as kind of the fourth quarterback because Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard kind of duking it out for that backup spot. So, yeah, Easton Stick was kind of manning
when you
that.
played baseball and you had to get in the batter's box, did you have an Easton Stick?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I had an Easton Stealth was the bat of choice that I used. But yes. Yeah, Eddie knows. Yeah, I had the Stealth in probably 4 different colors. And, it's funny because my parents, I feel terrible. Each bat's probably a good $500, and we went through plenty of them. So, and no return on the investment.
They're aluminum, right?
Yes.
So how did you go through them?
Well, I didn't go through the bat. I just, I thought I was going to be a major league player, and I thought I could be all high and mighty and say, this bat's not working anymore. I need a new one. And clearly that never happened. It got me to training camp out here.
Point your dad ever say to you, I'm looking into the crystal ball here, and you're going to be a lot less Mark McGuire and a lot more Huskies lineman coach?
He didn't, but he probably can now.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been, and this is not a bad thing. Casey Vallier is my guest here from the Colts. This is a training camp, Casey. Let's get into it. That so far, and yesterday we talked to you just at the beginning of practice, but I think the same holds true. It has not been a camp with a jump out of storyline other than still, I think you could safely say that wide receiver is an area of concern.
Yes. No, wide receiver is definitely something that you're wanting more. You're still looking for a couple of these guys to make that stride. Now, I know that it's been mentioned, whether it's in the media, whether it's been brought up to a handful of coaches, whether or not they tap into that veteran market, and that is still an area that you could realistically wait a little bit. Some of these guys that, you've heard that have been linked to the Colts don't necessarily need to be here for camp. But I think that's something that over the next week or so, I think you'll really start to see those conversations really start to intensify if nothing really takes place out here. We've seen Laquan Treadwell, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and Ashton Doolin making a handful of plays, but I don't think anybody has kind of put themselves above the others. And maybe you hope that when the Thursday game, a week from Thursday against the Patriots for preseason game number 1 happens, one of them makes a leap, and then you can start to feel a little bit better. And also, we heard from Chris Ballard that Alec Pierce was a couple weeks away. Still haven't seen him out here as we enter week 2, so you're hoping he can get back out there, and maybe that changes a little bit of the complexity that you're seeing in the wide receiver group. But that is definitely something to this point that I think has a little still some question marks that need to be answered. But I think one other thing that we are missing is the kicking battle. We saw Blake Grupe take 6 kicks yesterday, and he is still perfect while we've been out here.
Casey, I hate to say this because in sport, I hate seeing any player lose their job due to injury. That's a tough thing, right?
Yeah.
With that said, if it weren't for the fact that Spencer Schrader is the incumbent that lost the job just due to injury, I don't know that there's a battle right now in terms of kicking.
And that's a valid
Blake
argument.
Grupe has looked outstanding.
He has looked outstanding. He looked really good yesterday, and then we just saw here about 10 minutes ago, Spencer Schrader went from the same exact distance, and he went 4 of 6. He missed one from 45 and 57. He converted from 51, but those long-distance kicks right now, that's the biggest part of the NFL game.
When we hear that, Casey Valle is my guest from the Colts. And, typically when you're on the phone, you're on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline. But I mentioned it yesterday. I think between the two of us, what you got here is 2 Schwab guys. One
yes.
photo, right?
Absolutely.
So it's still the same.
And I use the body wash, so
it's outstanding,
we're
right?
Great. Oh, yeah.
Well, the 2-in-1, you get the hair.
And the
too.
hair, and all of it.
Believe me, wash it while you still got it, Casey. So when you hear about, for those that aren't here at Grand Park, Drop Light Grand Park up in Westfield for Colts camp, when we hear of, hey, they did this number of kicks today, Grupe was 5 of 6, here's a dumb question. Are they going through full simulation of a rush coming at them, long snap, set the ball down, or is it just they're out there lined up next to each other, nobody around?
So they typically do the just them out there in warm-ups, and those we don't really, jot down and calculate. So these are, you measure it out, you take the snap, you've got a simulated rush. These guys aren't coming to try and block the field goal. It's mainly just to see a simulation of the rush. But it is a full-on kicking motion every time. Now, one thing I will say is it is bang, bang, bang. So these guys don't get a couple minutes to rest in between. So it is kick your kick, you start walking back 5 yards. Kick your next kick, you walk back 5 more yards, and you go until you kick that 57-yarder. So it is 6 kicks in a pretty rapid pace. But like I said yesterday, Blake Grupe 6 of 6 today, Spencer Schrader 4 for 6. So in this battle competition that they have so created during camp, that's the only real evidence that we've seen of them kicking, and right now, Grupe has the leg up.
This is
6.
what number camp for you?
Oh, boy. So this is I've been out to every camp at Grand Park. I did not go to Anderson.
Okay.
So since 2018, every camp.
Okay, so the reason I ask it, in doing this, and every camp's different.
Yep.
Every camp has a different storyline. Every camp has a different feel. Every camp has a different urgency of position. Maybe wide receiver, it's that this year. But is there or let me rephrase that because I know there is. Give me an area where you now realize that you have a more trained eye about what you're seeing out here than the average fan that comes out, no disrespect to fans. And by that I mean, Casey, either something that you now notice that you didn't notice before, or something that you thought you noticed before and now you realize those things are irrelevant.
Yeah, so like I said before, not playing football, there are a lot of things that I am just still learning at this point. But I think the thing that I didn't recognize is how much more goes into being a tight end, because there are a lot of times you come out here and it's just I'm looking to see him catch. But that's where you see guys like Drew Ogletree and Mo Alley-Cox make their living by being blocking tight ends. So those are things that I didn't know. But then also defensively, from a secondary standpoint, all that goes into it. It's not all about interceptions. It's not all about passes defensed. It's how sticky are you in coverage? How many times are you being burned because you're in the wrong spot here or there? And those are things I've started to pick up here. Now, we have a lot of help. There's a handful of people on the sidelines that I stand with who have, whether it's Rick Venturi or Bill Brooks or even Matt Taylor, who played football in college. They all know what they're looking for. So I can ask them questions on, okay, who was at fault on that play? So they're able to help me. But I think I have kind of picked up a little bit more on as far as secondary coverages go, and then tight ends more than just receiving tight end wise.
What position? Tom Dienhart going to join us just a couple minutes from now. But Casey, what position would you say is most commonly seen as one where guys err, and that's because a naive eye doesn't realize that they're doing exactly what it is they're supposed to do?
That's probably the linebacker spot, because a lot of times, that linebacker, you might look at it and say, well, they allowed X amount of receiving yards or that guy to be open. But I think there is a little bit more to their job on a given play and where they're supposed to be compared to what we are seeing on where we think they're supposed to be.
I call that the Rob Morris phenomenon, and let me explain.
Okay.
In the Monday Night Miracle, the game where the Colts came roaring back against Tampa, probably the most famous primetime regular season game in Colts history.
Absolutely.
In that game, one of the final scores for Tampa to put them up, it might have been an early score. I think it was Keenan McCardell caught a pass over the middle, and the only person you see on your screen is Rob Morris, who is churning for all he's worth, running him down.
Okay.
And Rob Morris, because he had been a first-round pick, everybody's like, Rob Morris is a bust. He's not Brian Urlacher or whoever would have been the linebacker of the era. And I remember going in the next day, and I give a ton of credit to Rob Morris because Rob Morris never threw anyone under the bus.
Okay.
So I go in once they came back here in Indy on that Tuesday, whenever media availability was, probably was on a Wednesday, and I say, so what happened on that play? And he says, what do you mean? I said, well, you were beaten on that play.
Yeah.
And he answered it very diplomatically. And then, as the cameras are off and the microphone's off, he pulls me back over. And he goes, let me explain something. That was not my zone.
Right.
That was not my read. I had nothing to do with that play. But I never gave up on the play.
Right.
But I had, in no way, shape, or form was I responsible for that guy getting the ball. It's just I'm the one you see on the screen, and so therefore I look responsible. Yep. Now, he wasn't going to throw his teammates under the bus publicly, but privately he made it very – and that was the first time I had that epiphany of sometimes what you see – like, for example, someone looks at you and they see Husky lineman coach. What they don't know is promising baseball prospect.
There you go. Yes, that's exactly right.
Right.
Well done, Jake.
Thank you,
well
Casey.
done.
That's what I did. Casey Valier joining us. All right, appreciate it, Casey.
Of course, man.
They just heard the air horn, so they're doing another shift here.
Yep.
Tom Dienhart is going to join us on the other side. Purdue close to an athletic director. Who are they close to, and what exactly are they looking for? We'll get into that next.
Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
By the way, and I don't say this because we're playing Footloose. That would be completely inappropriate for me to make that natural segue. But Alec Pierce, obviously coming off of the ankle surgery, still on the PUP list here for the Colts. And the wide receiver position is indeed one area where certainly you could make the discussion that they don't need to address it because they feel comfortable with their depth of what they have within the roster, and only this coaching staff and this administration has seen these players to the depth that they have. You could make that argument or that discussion. But at the same time, I'm a big believer in precedent. And the precedent says that in the past, when Chris Ballard has been asked repeatedly about the receiver position, and he kind of smugly and defiantly said, hey, we're good, those were years where it ended up biting him. And they were hurt by their lack of depth at the receiver position. One of the storylines to watch here at Colts camp as we are here for the final day, at least in terms of this opening stretch that we've been at Drop Like Grand Park in Westfield for Colts camp. We'll get you caught up and up to breast on everything that does happen over the course of today. But joining us now on the Swab Men's 2-1 hotline, he is, of course, with Gold and Black. We've had him on covering Purdue in terms of On 3, the coverage for the Boilermakers, with Purdue from the football side of things, but the athletic director situation as well. Tom Dienhart joining us now on the program. And, Tom, let's get to that. Mike Babinski, we've known for a couple of weeks now, is on his way out as the Purdue athletic director. I was talking off the top of the show about how if you look at his tenure, you know, the coaching situations from the football standpoint would be the thing that Mike Babinski will most be probably linked to or remembered by. But for anyone that is now coming into this situation, it is a new era of athletics and everything for an athletic director. So let's begin with this, Tom. How is the job description of athletic director different today than it was at the time that Mike Babinski was hired?
I think, just look at the landscape of college athletics, the transfer portal, and then, of course, the advent of NIL. And the two biggest, I think, without a doubt. And, ADs can't do really anything about the transfer portal, but they can do stuff about NIL and rev share. And that's probably the area that's been impacted the most for athletic directors and athletic departments across the country. The ability to, number one, fund your rev share fully. Purdue's been able to do that. And number two, NIL. And I think that's where the game is really played in that space. Most of these schools, obviously in the Big Ten, can fund rev share to the hilt. What's your NIL game like? Can you be competitive in that space, spending above and beyond the rev share funds to build your roster specifically in football and men's basketball? That's the challenge. And I tell you what, we spoke with Babinski last Monday, and he laid it right out in plain sight for everybody that really the number one goal for this next AD is going to be to find new revenue streams, because the price of things are not going down and the demand for things are not going down in any landscape, especially in college athletics.
So, Tom, with that, and tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. I don't mean understanding you correctly. I mean the landscape of this correctly, okay? The athletic director per se is not necessarily himself. His job is to go out when we're talking about the NIL and the transfer portal, okay, in terms of what players are coming in from the transfer portal and how much they're going to get them to land at a specific school, in this case Purdue. That's more of like the coach's decision and the people that are hired within, like at Indiana's case, Ryan Carr from the basketball standpoint, to figure out that budget in that regard. But in terms of making sure that war chest and the money that the school themselves can can facilitate out and hand out, the appropriation of that money from booster standpoint is largely on the athletic director. Is that a fair statement? In other words, he has to be the P.T. Barnum to an extent that is going out and going to car dealers and boosters and fans and saying, we need you. Mostly we need your donations. Fair statement?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. He directs the traffic. He may not be on the front end of the pitch, so to speak, obviously. Uh, these ADs typically hire people in-house to help direct their NIL programs to go out and solicit for those funds. And Purdue does have a mechanism set up now. They have an NIL system in-house set up to try to get deals for student athletes when they do come to Purdue University. So it's there. It's just a matter of continuing to augment that. But there's no doubt, yeah, the athletic director is the captain of the ship, is the guy who has to steer that, make sure personnel is in place and everybody's on the same page. Because obviously, not everybody's motivated by money, but most of these guys want to know what they're going to make. And I tell you what, Jake, you hear some of the numbers today as far as how much money has been spent to build some of these football rosters, 30-40 million dollars by some of these elite programs. Some people don't think that's true, but other people have told me, other coaches in the Big Ten have told me, yes, some of those numbers we hear are true, that some of these schools are spending upwards of 30 or $40 million just to build a football roster for a single season.
By the way, I had a Freudian slip earlier, so I do apologize. Tom Dienhart, on3.com, where you can read Tom's work covering Purdue athletics. On3.com is the site. Tom Dienhart joining us on the Swab Men's 2-1 hotline. All right, so with that, Tom, do we have an idea? Because it appears as though it's imminent now, and it's narrowed down here. Do you have a pretty good idea as to who it's going to be that replaces Mike Babinski as the athletic director, or is it still in a shortlist category?
Yeah, I've done my best to try to turn over rocks, made phone calls, reached out to people who I think could really give me some legit intel on this. And some of the names that cropped up over the last week, one of them was the Boise State athletic director, Jeremiah Dickey. The Arkansas AD, Hunter Yurachek's name came up. We know there's an internal candidate, Jake, that being Ken Halpin, the deputy AD at Purdue. But the one name that has really emerged, and last night, Pete Thamel of ESPN reported that Rice athletic director Tommy McClellan, I think the phraseology is the target for the Purdue athletic director job. So there you go. If you look at his background, a lot of the things we just talked about, he checks the box on. So he's worked in some challenging situations at Rice and at Vanderbilt, and raised a lot of money and augmented NIL programs. So if we're to believe what's been reported, maybe it's just a matter of dotting I's and crossing T's here, and we could get some type of an official announcement sometime this week.
Okay, so I want you, if you could, give me the name again. You're saying from Vanderbilt, right?
No, he came from Rice.
I'm writing this down, Tom. From Rice,
Tommy McClellan. He's been the AD at Rice the last 3 years. He came to Rice from Vanderbilt, where he was the deputy AD.
Gotcha.
He raised over $300 million to help Vanderbilt redo its football stadium and augment its NIL programs as well. Sort of a, I guess, still a rising star, honestly. He's only 44 years old, was an AD at 26 years old, way back at McNeese State. The youngest AD in the nation at the time was AD at McNeese State, which is in Lake Charles, Louisiana, was the AD at Louisiana Tech after that. Then went to Vanderbilt as the deputy AD, got some experience at an SEC school, and again took the Rice job in 2023 for the last 3 years. So, like I said, a guy who seemingly checks a lot of boxes. And, just from the people I've talked to, the research I've done, seems like it would be a nice hire for Purdue.
Yeah, I think the thing there that's of note, Tom Dienhart's my guest on 3.com covering Purdue. Anytime that you can get, and I think Purdue has an appreciation for this, Tom, and you tell me how much you think this comes into play. If you're talking about somebody that's coming from Rice and Vanderbilt, what you're talking about there is alumni bases that, okay, and this is really getting into the weeds here, Tom, so, and I'm giving you full permission to say, Jake, you need to sleep more. You're staring at the ceiling at 3:48 in the morning, and you're overthinking things, okay? But when you look at Indiana, Kentucky, those schools that are state universities, oftentimes you get boosters either A, that graduate from that school and stay within the state because it's a liberal arts, business school, medical school, you're staying local to the area, or people like myself that grew up in the state and even before they'd gone to school there were a fan of the school because it was the state name, and so therefore they're willing to give. So you have a wider net of people that it's in the forefront of their mind to see their team play. A school like Purdue, because of the elite academic nature of it, and notably the programs they have that are worldwide, like their engineering program, that means that they are shotgunning their alumni all over the country and all over the world. And if a guy went to Purdue and now works in San Jose, California, it's less on the forefront of his mind the importance of making sure they get a point guard that's going to beat out Indiana, so to speak. A Rice or a Vanderbilt are schools of academic clout in the same area of that, where you would have that same challenge in terms of a further outreach to get people to connect and magnetize back to their alma mater. Now, that is maybe me way overthinking it, but it sounds like there is a blueprint there that translates to what has been a challenge for Purdue.
I think you explained that eloquently and accurately as well. The name Purdue, Jake, a lot of people aren't still unsure what state it's in. It's funny, you talk to some people and they think it's a small school on the East Coast. And I grew up here, went to school here, and again, just having that name. And you're right about the alumni being cast asunder, if you will. Southern California, Silicon Valley, the East Coast, Texas, all over. It's as you know, it's a massive school with a huge alumni base. But you're right, it does kind of get disconnected as they scatter across the country. So, and again, like you said, even though the profile of Purdue, much bigger enrollments, obviously, it differs from Rice and Vanderbilt, but the academic mission and the profile of the students, I think, is awfully similar. So, consequently, I think that the task of the AD to reaching out to those alums is pretty similar. And obviously, Tommy McClellan has that experience. So it's very interesting to see if this does come to fruition, what he can do to this university. And I'll be honest with you, Jake, I think some fresh ideas are needed. It's good to bring in somebody from the outside to give you a fresh perspective, a new set of eyes. And you know what, too, Jake? Some energy. And if he does get this job,
you know what? Tom, one of the things I was going to say, let's be real here, and that's no knock on Mike Babinski or the way that they've been doing it. I think in today's world of college athletics, sports in general, but in today's college athletics, that new perspective, it's constant. I mean, it literally, like, it feels like those new changes are good for like 3 to 5 years, and then boom, it's on to the next because it's kind of like trying to follow your latest social media craze, right? Hey, just when you figure out Facebook, then TikTok comes along, and then Instagram comes along, and then, it's constantly evolving and changing. I've never sounded older, I realize, but there is an element of that within college athletics, correct?
Oh, yeah, it's changing right before our very eyes. As we're talking right now, they're still trying to hammer out the future of the sport, and it's going to continue to evolve and change, Jake, just like you said. So that requires a like-minded individual leading your athletic department. And again, a guy of Tommy McClellan's profile seems to check that box. A nimble guy, a smart guy, a guy who's worked in a lot of different spaces at some different schools, who again can, I think, adapt to change and continue to evolve things for an athletic department that needs to continue to evolve. And again, if he does get the job, or whoever gets this job, how will they change even the structure of the athletic department? How many people will they bring with them? Will there be a big shakeup along Northwestern Avenue? It's going to be very fascinating to see what this thing looks like a year from now.
Okay, lastly, Tom, before we let you go, I'll do it in two parts. Number one, you would anticipate that we will get confirmation or an announcement on whoever the athletic director is going to be when. I mean, are we looking at imminently within a week here probably?
Correct. I think we're going to hear probably before the weekend would be my guess. So this thing should come, to a breaking point here, like I said, very, very soon, sometime this week.
Okay, and then number two, we're at Colts camp right now. Matter of fact, Cam Bynum, I think one of the Colts will be coming over here joining me in just about an hour or so. I know Purdue, all college programs getting set for college football season as well. We've talked to you about what Barry Odom is putting together for Purdue. Anything that jumps out at you in terms of as they get set to get ready here for training camp, so to speak, or getting set for the preseason, what jumps out at you, if anything, since last time we talked about Purdue, or what you're looking for?
August 6th, this Thursday, will be the first practice. And we were in Chicago on Wednesday for Big Ten Media Days. My biggest takeaway was just a chip on the shoulder. How about that? Barry Odom's got a chip on his shoulder. Charles Cray, the linebacker's got a chip on their shoulder. I had to ask him, of course, that chip stems from the fact of how do you feel about being picked to finish last in the Big Ten again? And it was made perfectly clear that it's been duly noted, and it's going to provide plenty of motivation. So it's the oldest, motivational ploy in the book, but it works, right? The lack of respect. We're going to show them, right? And that was the one thing that really resonated for me coming out of Chicago. So we're looking forward to training camp. Maybe we'll get some more personnel questions answered. Season opener, September 4th, a week from today, Jake. Friday night against Indiana State under the lights. And I'll leave you with this real quick. In your Colts camp, I just want to say, I can't believe this. 40 years ago, I was actually an intern with the Indianapolis Colts at training camp in Anderson, Indiana. The head coach,
Heck yeah,
Rod Dowhauer, Gary Hogaboom, Blair Keel, and the first-round pick was John Hand that year. You remember any of those names, Jake?
Alabama. John Hand was the second overall pick out of Alabama. He hooked up with Johnny Cooks, who was another one of their defensive players. Dwayne Bickett was their rising star at the linebacker spot. And Rod Dowhauer, I believe, was hired out of Vanderbilt, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Well, I think he came from the St. Louis Cardinals. He was the offensive coordinator.
Okay.
Get this. You remember, he coached the first 13 games that year. They lost all of them. He got fired.
Correct.
They hired Ron Meyer, who was supposed to come to Purdue as the head coach. The Colts took Ron Meyer away. Ron Meyer won the last 3 games. They finished 3-13. And then Ron Meyer had a real nice run as the Colts coach there for a couple of years.
Hey, man, Ron Meyer, they brought in Ricky Turner to try to run the wishbone with Eric Dickerson, and they were going to bring – and if I'm not – here's another weird twist to all that, right? So Ron Meyer ultimately, at the time that Ron Meyer was supposed to be hired by Purdue, I think Purdue at that time hired Leon Burtnett instead. Leon Burtnett was able to get Jeff George to come to Purdue because Jeff George loved the throwing, offense that Leon Burtnett had. Burtnett gets fired from Purdue. They bring in Fred Akers, who doesn't throw the ball at all. George transfers, and Leon Burtnett then gets hired by the Colts as the coordinator, and Jeff George ends up there, right?
You're right.
I think that's how it all worked out.
Yeah, Purdue had to pivot to Fred Akers when they didn't get Ron Meyer because Leon had been fired. You're right. Leon had signed Jeff George. 40 years ago this fall was Jeff George freshman year in West Lafayette. Of course, he transferred. Burtnett got fired. Fred Akers was hired, and Purdue football really went into a very bad tailspin at that point. So it's kind of fun to look back and remember how those twists of fate and how things could have maybe been different. But that was a fun summer for me with the Colts, the PR department there. And I remember Don Hine was still working.
Craig Kelly would have been the PR guy probably. Yeah.
Yeah, Craig Kelly was there.
Glory days, man.
And, just a lot of fun. John Banch, the writer for the Indianapolis Star, was still there, too. And the Indianapolis News was still going on the afternoon newspaper as well. Seems like a million years ago, but, boy, the Colts have been here. Man. Yeah, I read the Colts have been in Indianapolis longer than they were in Baltimore. It's crazy.
When you think about it, from where that program or that franchise, to use the pro term, was to now, it was a million years ago. There's no question about that. No
Real
question
quick,
about that.
Hey, Rick Venturi was on that staff. So you obviously know Rick Venturi.
Oh, yeah.
He was on that staff in '86. He's still going. He's the best.
Well, Venturi, when that Dowhauer team started 0-13, they were in Atlanta, and they got a blocked punt off Tate Randall to win. I think they won their last 3 games, and Venturi was part of that group, running off the field, going crazy, and then Ron Meyer comes in, and then they had a strike year, and so that now allowed them to win in '87. They won the division, went to Cleveland, took on the Browns. All right, Tom, on3.com, all of the latest, including keeping eyes on now Terry McClellan and seeing if that is the guy for the athletic director at Purdue. And once that happens, we'll probably have you back on. Tom, appreciate it as always.
Thanks. Good. Be good, my friend.
Appreciate it. Tom Dienhart joining us on the Suave Men's 2-1 Hotline. All right, quick recess. We'll come back real quick. I have a confession for Eddie. I have a confession for all of you. Kevin Bowen included. James Boyd included. I've hinted at the confession over the last couple of days, but now it's time for me, pardon the Swab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, to come clean with my confession. And we'll do it next here at Colts Camp. You're listening to it on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Thanks to Tom Dienhart for joining us. I think it's going to be Cam Bynum that's going to join coming up here after practice. This Colts practice is going to run until about 11:30 today. Scott Agnes joins us just a couple of minutes from now. But, Eddie, I have mentioned this to you before. There has been a big topic of conversation on this radio station, notably in the morning, with Kevin and James Boyd, regarding Italian restaurants because they had Lou Anarumo on yesterday. And, every year we go to, Chap is there. Every year I am part of and I love it as much as life itself, and I'm always grateful to Bill Benner for inviting me to it, the Friends of Robin Miller dinner night that we do at Iria's, because Robin Miller loved Iria's. And so we go there every year. And we have dinner there, and I love it. I love everything about it. And every year, for that matter, on Christmas Eve, it became, traditions change within families and dynamics and availability of people and whatnot. And so Shannon and I began by happenstance, almost out of necessity a couple of years ago. We went to P.F. Chang's on Christmas Eve, and I loved the atmosphere there. So we do that every year on Christmas Eve. And I loved Acapulco Joe's. Loved it. I loved the salsa they had at Acapulco Joe's. But, Eddie, here's my confession.
Okay.
And I want to know if I'm unique in this or if anybody else feels my pain. I wish this wasn't the case. I'm not saying that I'm proud of it. I'm not saying I'm ashamed of it. I'm just saying it factually. When it comes to those three cuisines, maybe I'm a simpleton. Maybe I'm a rube. Maybe I'm just Hoosier through and through. I went this weekend to La Piedad in Broderpool. Enjoyed it. But when it comes to the cuisine, ethnic cuisine, notably Italian, Chinese food, and I'm talking the Americanized version, right? Because I think we all know that if you go to Shanghai, I doubt you're getting sweet and sour chicken, right? But it's different dishes if you talk to people in terms of the authenticity. But when it comes to upscale or nicer ethnic restaurants, I can't tell the difference one to the next. I can't. I'm confessing right now. If people were to ask me, hey, what's the best Italian restaurant in town? They're all good. I'm not saying that I like all of them. I'm not saying I dislike any of them. But you present in front of me a plate of fettuccine Alfredo that is $48 from one place and a plate of fettuccine Alfredo that is $8 at another place. I don't have the sophistication of my palate to be able to tell you the difference. I don't. So why would I spend the 48? Now,
a lot of the difference. A lot of the difference, Jake, is in the noodle and the ingredients, and if they're house made or if they're actually from like Italy or that type of stuff. It's not more or less the dish itself.
When I was in Italy, I was in Florence, Italy. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to go over the river. Not over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house. We're going to go over the river, and we're going to go into the natives, where the natives are. I actually went to go buy a shoehorn. I went to a custom shoe place in Florence, and it was like everyone around me was wearing a business suit. There was not a tourist to be found. And we found like a small Italian diner where we were the only non-Italians in the place. And I ate it, and I'm like, it's good. It's like Fazoli's at 62nd Street. Maybe I'm just not that sophisticated. But I would like to know.
Yeah, your
maturity. At 523-9288. What's that?
Yeah, your maturity of your palate is not very
yes,
far along.
That might be it. 523-9288. I would like for you to tell me if I'm simply a rube. Because of that. I know I am already, but because of that, I'd be interested to know. Scott Agnes, who is not that. I'm going to ask Scott exactly that, and we're going to get into the situation with the fever. Not a bad situation, but is there a situation? We'll get to it next. Hey there, Jake Quarry for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripe. Surfside iced tea with a splash of vodka, lemonade with a splash of vodka. Perfect for a day like today. Perfect if you're just sitting at home watching the game, whatever it may be. Surfside with just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, but most importantly, no carbonation, so so smooth and easy to enjoy. That's what I love about Surfside. Aside from the fact, in addition to that, and it certainly helps to enjoy it, knowing that it's coming to you from folks that are just great people. Surfside, making sure that they are doing the best to bring sunshine to whatever event it is that you are enjoying. Surfside has a variety of flavors. You can buy them in packs. You can buy a flavor to your liking, like, for example, just the straight tea or the tea with that splash of lemonade in it. Look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 and please consume responsibly.
Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
All right, let's get you caught up on what's been taking place here at Grand Park, Drop Light Grand Park in Westfield. Unfortunately, right now, drop is the key syllable there. Seeing a couple of those from the wide receiver group. You can't read a lot into that, but they are right now middle of the field in terms of the Colts and what they're doing. They are doing basically wide out plays in turn. You know, they're not. Yesterday was a very active running back day. Today has so far been a very active wide receiver day. I've seen Tyler Warren make a couple of catches deep. I've seen a couple in terms of long balls thrown. I saw Mo Alley Cox make a really nice catch earlier on a very deep ball. Right there, catch made by Ben Nickel out of Iowa State. Immediately makes a catch, gets knocked down. You can't read a lot into it, other than to say the key aspect would be who it is that is running the quarterbacking position. And once again, it's Easton Stick. Easton Stick, the player out of North Dakota State that comes in pretty heralded in terms of his college accomplishments. But this wide receiver room, I hate to sit here and parrot what we've been talking about all week or what others have speculated. But it just feels like, and again, I have to remind myself of this. We all start somewhere. We all start somewhere. And it is the job of Chris Ballard. It is the job of Shane Steichen to evaluate talent through OTAs, through pre-draft workouts, through private workouts, through interviews. It is their job to find and grow talent. And if you look at the Indianapolis Colts, there are some players that, for example, you could very easily look at it and say, and make your own point within the point you're making. And by that I mean, if you were to say about the Colts wide receivers, look, I can see when I look out there, Ashton Dulin, and I could see Anthony Gould, but I don't see beyond that, and why are there no other veterans? Who are these guys? It's like the movie Major League. Who are these guys?
What's on first?
Fair. That's right. But, no, it's who's on first, by the way.
What's
right?
on second?
What's on second? That's right. There was a time where Ashton Dulin and Anthony Gould, when they were in camp, people were like, who are these guys? I've never heard of this guy. What school is he coming from again? Malone University? What is that? But he's been obviously groomed and grown into being a guy that is thought to be part of the rotation. Now, is he a major part of the rotation or is he a mainline player? Maybe not. But you could certainly make the case or make the argument if you were assigned to make that case in high school debate class and you had to say that they're going to be okay at wide receiver, you would say it is the job of the general manager and the head coach to be able to look over talent in practice situations, and only they know this roster to the depth that they do, and only they see what time guys come in and how they're working in film room and how they react to what they're taught and how well they are playing and making cuts and things like that. Only they know those things, and they are the ones that saw something in Ashton Dulin. They are the ones that saw something in Anthony Gould. They are the ones that saw and had confidence in Josh Downs as a rookie. And look where those guys are. So settle down, Jake. Fair. Having said that, it looks like a very average wide receiver room, and you do not win in the National Football League with average wide receivers, period. Look at teams that put themselves over the top. Kansas City is one system that you look at and you say they seemingly just place in player after player after player, and each time that they do, they get better and better and better. And every time that you think that Kansas City is in a situation where they don't have an elite wideout and one goes down, one gets hurt, one gets arrested, whatever it might be, Kansas City seemingly, how many times have you turned on a Thursday night football game or a Sunday night football game and you hear Joe Buck or you hear Al Michaels introducing you to some guy that they're like, he was signed off the practice squad 2 weeks ago, and then boom, he has a 65-yard pass from Patrick Mahomes. But they have Andy Reid generating their offense, and they have Patrick Mahomes running it. This franchise does not have Andy Reid, and it does not have Patrick Mahomes, certainly to this point. Joining us now on the Schwab Men's 2-1 hotline, he is with Fieldhouse Files. Fever in action Thursday night, taking on Las Vegas at the Fieldhouse. 7 o'clock tip, pregame at 6:30. Scott Agnes joining us. Scott, if you were to look at what happened in Minnesota, 108-100, the Lynx getting the better of Indiana. I did think that Indiana showed some resolve late in that game. However, defensively, I think they just allowed Minnesota too early to get into rhythm. Minnesota's very good offensively, though. But in terms of where Stephanie White would like this defense to be, you see it right now at what percentage? It is running on what percent of where it needs to be if they're going to make a deep run?
Yeah, I think it's probably at 65%. There's still a ways to go, I think, defensively, Jake. I mean, you give up 100 points and lose. That was the story right at the first part of the season. And so I think there's still a gap for them to go. And I'm talking to be championship contenders. I'm not talking to win one series in the playoffs. That doesn't matter to this franchise right now where they're at. Caitlin Clark set the standard, set the expectation months before the scene, saying it's all about a championship. Now, go back to that last game. Yeah, Minnesota has been the model of consistency on both sides of the ball, Jake. You have a situation there where they're number 2 in defense, number 2 in offense, and Nafisa Collier missed most of the first part of the season due to injury. And so it's really been the emergence of rookie Olivia Miles. So they allowed them to settle in. It was really like an all-star game in track meet that first quarter. And then the Fever had those second, third quarter lulls is another thing, Jake, I think that they have to do much better at. That's been a consistent theme all season.
Scott Agnes joins us from Fieldhouse Files. And, Scott, when you look at – by the way, Eddie, is Scott getting chipmunked? Do we know that?
Well, I know me? Scott's computer had a hard reboot there, and I think, Scott, whenever you came back, it sounded like you have like a voice effect on for like some helium.
Does Scott have on – is that on our end? Scott, can you do me a favor and just simply say, we represent the Lollipop Guild? Can you say that real quick for us? Just, we represent the Lollipop Guild.
I think I fixed it.
There we
represent the Lollipop. All right.
So, hold on. Can you go back to your original setting real quick? No. I want you to go back to the original setting. Scott, we have to celebrate this moment. Let me tell you why we have to celebrate this moment, okay?
Okay.
This is the first time in the history of this radio program that somebody sounded like they were on helium, that it was not on our end. So based on that, because this actually was something that we could fault someone else for, I need you to go back, if you could, just put yourself back on that setting and then just simply say, and even speed it up a little bit if you could, and just say, we represent the Lollipop Guild. But say it with that other setting on, okay? We'll count to 5 here or so, and then we'll record it, and we'll have fun with it. All right, here we go. This is Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files.
It's not a setting, unfortunately. It's usually just a hard reboot of my audio board. So I can't do it. I can't duplicate it for you.
Oh, my gosh. That is the biggest buzzkill of all time. Wait a minute. So you're telling me that when you noticed an issue with this, you were able to fix it within like 30 seconds?
Like 5 seconds, yeah. Unplug from laptop, turn off soundboard, turn back on.
Can we put you on retainer to come hang out at our place from time to time? Because with my computer, I could use some help on that. But let's get back to that. To me, it seems as though this group, especially offensively, is clicking on all cylinders. Okay, defensively, There is that area obviously where I thought they got out to the slow start. But let's address the elephant in the room, Scott, and it's not one that I said yesterday that I called it Snuffleupagus. Thought it was a fictional storyline. But I want your thought on it. From what you hear, from what you can see, the different use of platforms amongst players for the Fever, notably Sophie Cunningham, and an interview that was done months ago but just recently came out, and therefore it's now a bigger story of Sophie Cunningham and trans athletes and those things. Is it or could it create any sort of on-court tension when you have different philosophies, different personalities on a roster?
I don't think so, only because this is a situation here where it's just outside noise. I know it's certainly creeped in. You're having fans buy courtside tickets, and you're sharing their different beliefs. But when it comes down to it, I feel like you see, and it starts with Caitlin Clark. She just wants to play basketball, just wants to ball. Doesn't care what you think about this or that. Just wants to go out there and see if they have a chance to win a championship this year. So I think that's something they'll rely on. I think also going back even to last year, Jake, when Stephanie White came in here, the number one emphasis was just block out all that noise, keep everything inside, keep the standard inside. So I think it's natural and probably human, very human-like to allow it to seep in a little bit this first week. They were on the road. They had nobody at home. All they could do was either be in their hotel or be amongst one another here. But I think when it comes down to it, this greater goal, and keep in mind, they have about 2 weeks of games, and then they'll have 3 weeks off. I'll be curious what happens. Will that die down and go away over those 3 weeks or what? Then you only have 4 games and then the playoffs. So it's a unique schedule that I don't think they'll allow it to bother them more than curious how they handle post-game interviews and those sort of things, which has been gone back and forth in their handling.
Okay, Scott, I don't disagree with any of that, but let me throw you something and then let
Sure.
you respond to it, okay? Or give me your thought on it, because you're around this a lot. Scott Agnes, our guest from Fieldhouse Files. I mean, you've worked on the sidelines for this franchise. You've worked inside the building for the corporation. I mean, you have a really good feel for this over the evolution of time, okay? I'm going to go back to Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan was a young player, and Michael Jordan was asked at one point, and I'm paraphrasing to an extent, but everybody knows the famous quote. When Jordan first launched the Air Jordans, and he became the face of Nike, and Nike said, this is the guy that we're building our brand around. And Michael Jordan was asked why he was not more outspoken about political narrative. And Jordan's response, his famous response now, and maybe it was just attributed to him and he didn't even say it. But to paraphrase it, his quote was, Republicans buy sneakers too. Okay? But that was in the mid-'80s. It was 40 years ago. You didn't have then social media. You didn't have 100 channels. You didn't have television a la carte. And you didn't have in-motion billboards in Times Square and everything else. And Caitlin Clark has become a phenomenon. She's become a phenomenon because she is a transcendent generational talent in basketball and does things in the women's game that we had not anticipated seeing. And because of that, she became a Madison Avenue star before she ever played in a WNBA game. And she is in an era, unlike Michael Jordan, where all of those things are out there for the branding and the platform of it. And it's for that reason that if that is going to be what it is that makes you the star, we are now in an era where, unfortunately, unlike Michael Jordan 40 years ago, you're not able to dictate the terms of the conversation. You have to you are expected now. Unlike then, you are expected now to have response to that noise. And until that response comes in some form or fashion and is definitive, that noise is only going to get louder. Now, any validity to any of that I just said?
I think with that famous quote, there might be a small part to it, but I think more than anything, Jake, look, she was just frustrated that they came off a loss this past game and wanted to talk basketball. And
I understand that, and she's not wrong,
totally.
Scott. She's not wrong, but those
right.
questions aren't going to go away.
They're not. Where I do think they are a little bit unfair, although you are the face of the league, is this was not something Sophie said during a game. It was not something she said during a press conference. This was a side story that was done before the season. So does she need to answer to something a teammate said 5 years ago, 10 years ago? The other thing is that was not the overwhelming thing in the story. That was not – it was not Sophie seeking out a platform to
right.
express those feelings rather than answering a question. So the challenge becomes on all this is where does it end? Do other people have to answer to that? I think the fact that Sophie, on her own, not on the team, during a media session, anything like that,
I think that changes kind of the expectation of what needs to be said. I do think Caitlin's going to be asked about it, and she was one time, needs to answer it that one time. And then if I'm her and I don't want to answer it again, which I think that's probably the case, I think she'll just say, I already answered that. And that's as simple as it needs to be.
My concern for the Fever,
yeah,
and maybe I'm guilty of this right here, okay? My concern for the Fever is that there's almost this hope and expectation that they're going to become a locker room divided. My concern for the Fever is that in today's day where nobody can anymore just take something as purple, it's got to be too much blue or too much red. Nobody can just say purple's beautiful. No, it needs more blue. No, it needs more red. And my concern is that there is a percentage of a fan base, and maybe it's even like a fictional fan base, but there is this noise that is convincing itself that any situation is a negative one for the flourishment of Caitlin Clark or for the Fever itself, and whatever example they can find to create discourse, that narrative only gets louder and louder until the discourse is proven. And that's my concern, is that at no fault of anybody on that roster or anybody in that front office, that noise and that vortex is going to pull them in.
You raised a good point because like 40 years ago, you would have needed somebody to give you a platform to discuss, to have comments, anything, talking about protesters and things like that. Now you're just, you can go on social media, you're creating T-shirts easily, all those different things that go certainly in your favor. I do not think it'll tear a locker room by any means apart. I think the only thing I am concerned about at this juncture, Jake, is the fact that it could apply additional pressure, right? What's Cunningham like when she's playing under pressure, when she's booed if she arrives, every time she checks in like she was the last couple of games? Is that an anomaly? Will that continue? Is something to be seen the rest of the way here.
Scott Agnes is our guest, Fieldhouse Files. Scott, when you look at the game coming up against Las Vegas, reality is that's a franchise where this team's played pretty well. Really good team, really good course of history here for Las Vegas. What is it about this matchup that favors Indiana?
Yeah, well, last game, the thing that it was there in Vegas, it was during Summer League, that really stood out to me was the way in which Aaliyah Boston had her way with Asia Wilson, the MVP, this past game. It was the most determined, focused basketball that I've seen Boston play in her career. So they need for that to continue. And then it really just comes down, I think, a lot to the ball pressure. They have a lot of good guards. Jackie Young, fans are familiar with. Chelsea Gray, one of the better point guards in the league. So, having their individual defense locked down and then being on a string defensively comes up huge. And then getting back out in transition. This last game, 0 transition points. We all know Caitlin and this entire team is at their best when they're getting stops and able to capitalize in transition, something they were unable to maximize in this past game. But this starts a a homestand with three of their next 4 games. This final push kind of to the World Cup break coming up in late August. So I think if I'm Stephanie White, those are the things I'm emphasizing in addition to the defensive conversation that we had minutes ago.
Hey, Scott, when you look at, like right now, the Colts. We're at Colts camp, by the way, for practice number 6, week number 2, Drop Light Grand Park up in Westfield. Cam Bynum, I think, going to join us here once camp's done, but they go until 11:30 today. One of the big stories that we've been talking about, you heard me talking about just before you came on, is that of wide receiver for the Colts and trying to find someone that elevates that game. When you look at this particular group for the Fever and what they've done of late, I think 7 of 9 now they've won. They had a good trip on their road trip, although they dropped it in Minnesota. We just talked about that. What player or players have most elevated their game of late we know that Caitlin Clark's fantastic. We know that Kelsey Mitchell's fantastic. We know that Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull, when they are, have touch from the outside, and Aaliyah Boston's had. We know those players. What auxiliary or role players have increased their contribution and the expectation of them that has also facilitated for this run?
Yeah, you're right. Let's especially go outside the big three. To me, it's Michaela Tipson, Jake. What she's done the last several games, really on this road trip. Maisha Hines-Allen is not getting those backup 4 minutes behind Monique Billings. It's Tipson, the second-year player who has incredible length and wingspan and an incredible motor as well. She's still learning very much on the fly, but I thought it was telling last game going against her best close friend and mentor, Natasha Howard, who was here last year and went up and I think blocked a shot and got a big rebound over her. She's a player this front office I know is very excited about, and if she can continue to give them 20, 25 minutes per game off the bench and give them points, rebounding, hustle plays, a couple blocks per game, she's that alternative player that stands out to me in what they've got accomplished in this last week.
Scott, is it weird that I'm wearing bug spray out here at Colts camp? I mean, it's not. It's the middle of the day, but
not at all. As someone who, I think it's because my blood, but as someone who always gets my ankles eaten up and everything, I totally understand the move.
I think because of my blood, my ankles are constantly being eaten up, is what he says.
Jake, I've done research into this, trying to find ways to be outside in the summer and not be wearing pants or anything like this.
Okay, excuse me. Hold on.
You know what I mean.
Scott Agnes, because of his blood, he's looking for ways to not have to wear pants. He's just walking around looking for ways to not wear pants. Here are my 2 tips. You ready, Scott?
Yeah.
Number 1. Now, I didn't do this today, and I'm not saying that I even recommend it. But I've heard that if you take a shot of vinegar, it's good. Like that if you're camping. If you're camping and you take a shot of vinegar, it then comes out of your pores, and mosquitoes are like the rest of us where they're like, nah, no go, right? That's number 1. Number 2, are you familiar with Avon Skin So Soft?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I don't even know if they still make it. I'm going with a mid-90s like old wives' theory. Avon Skin So Soft is a lotion made by Avon, the like door-to-door Avon lady. Skin So Soft is a nightly lotion made by Avon, but it has some sort of like a scent in it that drives insects berserk, and they will not come within 100, like literally 100 yards of you. There you go. For whatever reason, back in the early 90s, in the Broadapple days, it appears as though I was wearing the equivalent of Avon Skin So Soft for women, actually. They wouldn't come within 100 yards of me. But Avon Skin So Soft is supposed to be perfect for that. I'm just telling you. That or a shot of vinegar.
I'm on board for either one. Whatever will get the job done so that I can be in shorts during the hot summertime, Jake.
Okay. Now you're clarifying. Before it was just the pantless Scott Agnes. Okay. That is, again, and I can tell this story now, Scott, but I had a friend in college, true story, that took a summer job at a resort in Wyoming, like one of these huge, like Yellowstone resorts. And my friend took the job, and he literally was like he manned like the crepes and the pancake machine at this resort. Great job, right? You get up, you're there at 5 a.m, you work till 10 for breakfast shift, do whatever you want for the rest of the day. So one day they call a meeting and they say, just so you know, this weekend the group that has rented out the resort is a nudist colony. So you guys will get paid if you opt not to work, but if you do work, you get time and a half. My buddy's like, I'll take the time and a half. Mm-hmm. And so he said It was all these like relatively gross, old, fat, naked people walking around getting their crepes. And there was one celebrity that came walking up, and he looked down and he's like, trying to just focus on the crepes machine, and he looks up to ask what, do you want blueberries or whatever, and he's like, oh my gosh, and he recognizes the celebrity, and the celebrity recognizes him. And I can't say the name of the celebrity even though he's no longer with us, Scott, but I will only tell you this. He said the following. You ready? Now I'm going to assume that you won't let anybody know you saw me here. And my buddy's like, yes, that's correct. And then later I think he said something along the lines of, make sure that your omelet comes for those that might have diabetes. So I'm not going to say the celebrity. I'm only going to say the thought of that guy walking around without pants is as horrific as the thought of you walking around without pants with your succulent blood that the insects enjoy. So Skin So Soft and Heinz vinegar. There you go. There are your tips, right?
I appreciate those tips.
Scott Agnes. And now you know, right? Scott Angus joining us, Fieldhouse Files. All right, Scott, appreciate the time as always. Fever, 7 o'clock against Vegas coming up on Thursday. Pregame is at 6:30 in that game. Colts wrapping things up here on – now, I'm not going to lie to you, Eddie. It's getting a little more humid. I had said off the top of the show, and I think I'm the one that jinxed us. I said off the top of the show that it was like San Diego weather. It was glorious. It was perfect. The air's getting a little bit thick. And then again, though, this practice session, this is the longest that the Colts have gone. They are going until 11:30 today, and then after that, we'll have one of the players to come over. Also, Daniel Jones, my understanding, going to join the morning show guys tomorrow morning. So the quarterback of the Colts will be on with the morning show guys. You will hear that tomorrow morning. As for today, the workouts that they have done, they have been over here on – there are two fields here. Where we are is in the far northwest corner of Droplight Grand Park in Westfield. The corner of the field that we're on, that is the main field that typically Shane Steichen is overseeing drills and things that the team is working on for these practice sessions. And they are very abbreviated practice sessions, but they work quickly. You hear the air horn go off, you hear the whistles. They are literally going like one drill to the next. But what they have really been working on for a very long time here today, at least in this area where I am, are long passing drills. And Easton Stick is the quarterback that has been manning most of that. Now, I did watch, obviously, during the start of practice, and Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard, Easton Stick, all going through those motions. One of the things that jumps out at you, and I hate to belabor this point, which has become one that has been routine in Indianapolis when you're talking about the Colts, but there is no denying when you are sitting here and you're watching, the most impressive specimen relative to their position is Anthony Richardson. I mean, I understand why they were so intrigued. Yes, we can now say, I think definitively, as I have said, they handed him the keys too early. And they did him no service. You could say that the Colts did him wrong. They did. They took a guy that had all the tools. The only thing that Anthony Richardson lacked was maturity. And I don't mean maturity like he was coming in and giggling and throwing spitballs in meetings. I don't mean that. I mean the maturity just simply in a basic grasp or understanding of everything that goes into manning the most important and stress-filled position in all of professional sport. And Richardson came in, and I'm going to repeat what I said 4 months ago. Fernando Mendoza may well become the starter this year for the Las Vegas Raiders. He might start week 1. But what did the Raiders do after they drafted him? Fernando Mendoza, who had a 3,000-yard passing season with 40 touchdowns, I think, at Cal as an upperclassman before he transferred to Indiana. Fernando Mendoza, who came to Indiana as a graduate student, who had earned his undergraduate degree from one of the elite academic institutions in America, and came there with 30-plus starts. I'm throwing out a number, but I think that's correct, somewhere in there. And he comes to Indiana, and he starts in 16 games. 16 games. And he wins all 16. He is the quarterback of a team that goes 16-0 for the first time in 130 years. He wins the Heisman Trophy. He leads his team on multiple drives when the game is on the line. He wins the national championship with a play where they need yardage on fourth down, and he does it with his legs and finds a way to score. Okay? And with all of that experience, with all of that accomplishment, with every area of it, Fernando Mendoza was selected number 1 overall, and the Raiders decided that they needed a veteran for him to learn from. He needed to wait his turn. He needed to earn his keep. The Colts drafted Anthony Richardson, who had all the tools. He's big, He's fast. He looks the part. He's bigger than his peers. He's bigger than his contemporaries. And yet, when he got here, they handed him the keys. And they didn't allow him to have to learn the professional maturity. They didn't allow him to learn that, what do they say in Shawshank? Sometimes it takes pressure and time. They had all the time in the world. They gave him no pressure. They created no pressure. To get a diamond, you need pressure and time. And they had all the time in the world with Anthony Richardson, but they took that away because they handed him the keys. And they did not put him in a position where he needed or had any pressure. And so I don't think he ever fully grasped what all was to go into it. And now they are still in that situation where he's there. You know he's there, and there's something seemingly that can be salvaged. But what exactly is it? And I think we know now that the quarterback, obviously we know the quarterback is Daniel Jones. So then, do you have, are you even stunting behind him those other players that could Riley Leonard be a diamond in the rough? I mean, they're giving him certainly the time, and maybe to some extent they're creating for him the pressure because Richardson is there. But every time I look over and I see Anthony Richardson on the field, unfortunately, what I'm reminded of is not the great promise and potential and the amazing body and the fact that he is still at an age where something can be had from it. But I'm reminded, rather, of a guy who has failed. He was failed by his franchise. The helmet tap did him in. Did him in with his coach, did him in with his teammates, probably. I don't know that it did him in with his general manager, but it did him in with that coach. The helmet tap, and that was lack of maturity because he never necessarily had time or necessity to mature. It was, here you go, you're good to go. No more lessons to be learned. Practice is going to be wrapping up shortly. One of the players from the Colts will come over and join us. I believe Stephen Holder is going to join us on the program later, as well as we will assess what we see here and what has been an active day, certainly. No storylines in terms of I don't think anybody has gone down or anything like that, but it has been a flurry of activity here for this team, and we'll find out and assess exactly where it all works once they wrap things up. We'll do it here from Droplight Park, Grand Park in Westfield. It is Colts camp on this camp number 6. Query and Company on the Fan. Hey there, Jake Query for Chicago's Pizza. Still time right now. As a matter of fact, lunch hour is here for the lunch buffet at Chicago's Pizza. 19 locations in central Indiana, 26 across the state. Started out back in 1978. Ron Epple and the guys said, actually 79 by the time they opened, said, let's open a place that is a pizza place like the way it should be, community-based, making sure that we're taking pride in what we're doing, hand-rolled breadsticks, hand-rolled crust, and doing it with a salad bar with all the fixings. And you know what? We can do a lunch buffet. From 11 until 1:30 every day, you get all of those things. Dessert pizza, deep dish pizza. Think right now. You're driving. You're thinking about where to have lunch. Think about that cheese just melting into the tomato sauce. Think about the ice glistening on the salad bar with all the fixings, all the dressings, and a soft drink, and a price that you're going to say to yourself, you know what? I could do that again later. Why not? The family meal deal tonight, 2 medium, 1-topping pizzas, and a fresh order of breadsticks for just $25. I love Chicago's Pizza because Chicago's Pizza is a neighborhood-oriented pizza establishment where they care about community, they care about the people there, and they make sure that you're getting the very best for your lunch or dinner options. Chicago's Pizza, 19 locations across Indiana, across central Indiana, and 26 statewide. Find a location near you at chicagospizza.com.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We are back at Droplight Grand Park in Westfield. Colts camp has wrapped up, and we anticipate that Cam Bynum will be joining us here shortly. As a matter of fact, all the players have wrapped up. Right now, looks like Jonathan Taylor, Shane Steichen going to address the media. Stephen Holder, I think, will join us after they are done, and we will kind of get the word from Stephen as to what was said. I think that Taylor's in a unique situation or an interesting situation because he, let's be real, I feel like it would behoove him to start talking about the contract situation, to be honest with you. But, maybe I'm wrong in that. But if I'm his agent, I may be starting to explore that or discuss it just based on the fact we've talked about it. I don't mean Jonathan Taylor and I have. I mean you, the folks, the listeners, and I have talked about this. The fact that, Taylor's in a contract year, and he's in a year where the running back in general, he has to know. If the Colts don't have a great year, if this is a year for the Colts where, for whatever reason, things can go the wrong way, then they may be completely starting over from a coach everything standpoint, and then what happens? Cam Bynum going to join us, and he's going to do it next. We'll take a quick recess. We'll come right back. Droplight Grand Park in Westfield. It's Query & Company on the Fan.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Now, you would think when you hear that music that means somebody is here from the University of Michigan, because that's their song. Although I think that song is kind of becoming like the anthem for everybody, truth be told. The Killers, of course, with Mr. Brightside. This guy, Cam Bynum, you're kind of Mr. Brightside, aren't you? Like, you always have this big smile on your face, and, I don't know, like I don't know at Cal, same colors as Michigan, I guess, but you're an optimistic guy, and there's a lot going on with you I want to get to. But first off, welcome back to training camp and another year with the Colts.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. Second year feels like it's normal now. Last year, I was still trying to get my bearings just in living life out here in a new state, new team, still trying to learn everybody's name last year. So it's kind of I wouldn't say stressful in a bad way, but I still felt like a new guy last year at this time. So, but now with the whole year being in Indianapolis, I love it. It feels like home at this point.
Okay, now feeling like home, one thing is different for you this year, and that is, and it's kind of been a story the last 2 days here in week 2, you are now the guy, and I'd never heard the term green dot guy. I'd never heard that until like a week ago. But you are the communicator. So you're the one that is now kind of the quarterback of the defense, getting the signals that are in. Let's begin with this. Is that weird?
It's different. I wouldn't say it's weird in a bad way, but it's different just because, most of the time you're used to the middle backer doing that, so he can talk to the D-line and the DBs. He's kind of like right in the middle of the pack where he can communicate to everybody. But for me, being my second year in the system and, me being really, really locked in on the scheme, now I feel comfortable being able to do that. And a guy that plays pretty much every snap, I feel comfortable enough to be able to do that where I can be able to talk to everybody.
Okay, can you give me an example? This fascinates me. Cam Bynum is my guest, safety, of course, for the Colts. So you've got the radio communication from the sidelines. Can you give me an example of what it is that's being said?
So it's Lou telling you the situation. I don't know if he does this with everybody, but he's talking like almost the entire time coming up. When I'm in the huddle, he's like, it's 1st and 10. We have nickel. They're in 12 personnel. And he's like giving me the situation. Then he'll give the call. And then if there's any reminder, so it's cover 3. I'm not going to say the exact name, but he say 1st and 10. They're in 12 personnel. We'll go cover 3. And then I'll say that. And then I think they have up until 15 seconds left on the play clock to be able to talk. So I'm guessing in the game he's going to be in the mic saying, hey, they're lining up like this. They have this in the game. This guy's lining up here until the thing cuts off. So I'm sure Lou is going to be talking the entire time.
How clearly can you hear it?
Right now it's practice, so it's easy. It's super loud.
Right.
The mic is – because the headphones are right. It surprised me yesterday when I did it for the first time. I was like, oh, this is like really loud. I can't even hear myself talk when Coach is talking at the same time.
So another dumb question, how in-depth into the helmet is the speaker itself? Because I would be worried about like this little contraption injuring me if there's a collision on that near that on the helmet. Does that make sense?
It's right under the pad, so it's like it won't touch you at all. There's a good amount of space from your ear, and it's like, a quarter, probably an eighth of an inch thick.
So
speaker.
Obviously in a game situation, there's one guy that's designed for that game, and then you can't change that helmet over the course of the game, right?
If somebody –
So in other words, if you are the designed communicator at the outset of a game, does that mean you are the designed communicator for that game for the totality of the game?
Yes, unless you're injured or out, from my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
And have you been this before, like
Never.
in your previous stops?
Never. I've never been on a team where a DB has done it. So I know Coach Lou told me Von Bell with Cincinnati, his safety a few years ago, he was the green dot there. So that made me feel more comfortable. Like, okay, I'm not the first DB in history to do this.
Okay, when you're back there, so you obviously then, and again, a dumb question, you don't communicate back to him though, right? Like
no, he can't. It's a one way.
It's one way.
So I look at I'm making eye contact with him on the sideline, and he has the walkie-talkie.
Are you married?
I nod my head. Yes.
Yeah. So you're used to these one-way conversations anyway, right? Isn't that right?
Thankfully not.
This is good training, right?
Good training.
Okay.
Try to make it two-way at all times.
But at any rate, so right now you guys are working on that. Is it your anticipation that you will stay as this designated communicator for the defense throughout the course of the year?
I would think so, yes.
Okay.
Unless something happens where he gives it back to any of the linebackers but I think just right now, with me being long time in the scheme and understanding it well, I think it's going to be a full season thing as of now. I enjoy it. It's a new challenge, and that's what I'm welcoming. And it's something new for me, but I think it'll be cool to be able to master it and be able to be, step up in that leadership role, being the voice for the defense.
You guys are a bit unique in the fact, Cam Bynum, that Lou Anarumo's defense, and you tell me if I'm wrong in this, but it seems as though the definition, quote unquote, of free safety versus strong safety has a little more flexibility in this defense than typically and traditionally. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is. It's really, we're just pieces of a defense, and technically, like on paper, strong safety is always away from the nickel. Free safety is always the deep guy to the side of the nickel on paper. That's just like general football stuff. But for us, we're able to interchange whatever pieces we want based off of, whoever I'm in with. We can play left and right, or if somebody that I'm in with, like for instance, last year with Nick Cross, he was really good playing in the box. And for me, with my corner background, I feel comfortable being in space. So our game complemented each other well. So now this year coming up, whether it's going to be Hunter, whether it's A.J. Halsey, all of us are comfortable playing multiple spots. So we're able to do that. But also wherever coach wants us to play, we're able to be interchangeable at whatever position.
Do you have one guy that you feel the most comfortable with at this point? In other words, your movement jives with which guy the most in terms of just it's instinctive and you know where he's going to be?
I feel like it's even right now. Both of them are coming from, Hunter. He missed his last –
Hunter Wohler,
Hunter Wohler missed his rookie season, so he's still getting his – he's a really smart player, and he's still learning and becoming – building those vet habits. And same with A.J. being a rookie. He's still stepping into the NFL. So both of them – they're both really eager to learn. So it feels even right now, and both are getting the job done really well. And I don't feel like no matter who's in out of them two, I feel like we don't lose any speed at all.
How are they different from one another?
Let's see. We're only a week and a half into practice, but I'll say Hunter, he's a more, technical, knows what to do. And, you could tell he's in the second year of the scheme, at least mentally, being able to learn it. So he's able to play really, really smart ball. And A.J. on the same way, he's learning really fast. But I can just tell that A.J., he's a really good splash player. So we've seen his college tape, 10 interceptions in college, and his nickname is Mr. Gimme That. So so far he's stood out as far as like ball skills and everything. But both of them are really in their own respective really great players.
There's a lot of discussion about, just overall the quality of this defensive backfield, and that it could potentially be the deepest that the Colts have had since coming to Indianapolis, truth be told.
Yeah.
When you look in particular at the corners in Mooney Ward and Sauce Gardner, you're behind it, so you're seeing what it is that those guys can do. So what do you see?
I see lockdown. I see just tight coverage pretty much every play between Sauce and Mooney. It's just fun to be a safety in the scheme when you have two guys that can lock down their side and make plays. And I think it just makes the quarterback have to think twice about throwing the ball certain places, and whether that helps out the front, get more sacks, or helps me get more tip balls or overthrows because of their tight coverage. I think for me, it benefits me as a safety, but it's also they're really smart players too. So when we're not just running man all day, they're able to play really well in the zones and be able to play smart football and know what to do. So they're the full package, both of them.
And we know that Kenny Moore II, who was, he was an elite level nickel over the course of his time here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess two-part, and if this happened in the last 24 hours and I was unaware of it, my apologies. Were you surprised at this point that he was still unsigned?
I wouldn't say. I know he has a plan, and I know any team is going to be really eager to get him.
Right.
So I don't know what the situation is, but I know that he'll play football at a high level.
I
this
guess
year.
you can kind of, if you're him, you kind of wait to see what the best opportunity is, right?
Exactly. So it's like unsigned in his scenario as a future, in my opinion, future Hall of Famer playing nickel. I think he changed the game as one of the best nickels of all time. I know that he has a plan, and he's, vetting opportunities where he can be on a team that complements his play style, and just a place that's the best situation for him going into year 10. So I know he'll be able to ball out wherever he wants.
Who has jumped out at you? And again, just a week and a half into practice, but who has jumped out as a nickel that you have seen and looks very comfortable?
Justin Wally. Yeah, he's been looking really good.
That was the case a year ago as well, right?
Exactly. He had a really good rookie training camp last year before his injury, and he stood out is probably one of the best rookies I've ever seen last year, as far as coming in and strapping and like that confidence and the smarts that he plays with. So I think this year he's built off of that, and he didn't use his injured year to not make progress. He came in as a better player now, playing some corner too with the second group, but being a starting nickel, and he showed that he belongs out there.
Cam Bynum is my guest here. We are at Colts camp here in week number 2, practice number 6. Let me tell you something I find really interesting. A lot of guys in the off season, they go on a vacation or they take on a new project. And we talked about this with you a year ago. Your mother is an American but of Filipino descent, right?
Yes.
And you spend your off seasons now living. Your off season home is the Philippines,
yes.
Correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
That would get you, one would assume, about as far removed from football as you could be.
Oh yeah, and that's why.
And yet at the same time, and I don't know this, Cam, and I don't mean this in any way, shape, or form to be derogatory towards the people of the Philippines.
Yep.
But I would assume that, would you say it's what, a second world nation? Is it a first world nation?
Technically, it's a developing country still, technically, but it's really not. I would say there's really nice areas, and then obviously if you look into the more poor areas, you'll find them just like any country.
And that's what I was going to point out here is I would imagine that because it would be very easy to say that a guy living in the Philippines in the offseason in the NFL is getting too far detached from the NFL. And then I think about it and I think, but yet I would think there is no place that would offer greater perspective as to the fortune that is here before you and the
100%.
Opportunity here for you.
And that's the exact reason that I fell in love with living overseas. The first time I went, it was like when I went there and I came back, I'm like, I can never complain about anything again. Especially me, like I like to feel detached from football and just from my day job when I'm overseas, but somehow I'm surrounded by football 24/7 and just a different form of football. People that are playing flag football and their eagerness to play the game out there. Everybody has day jobs, but at 10 p.m. they rent the field from 10 to midnight to go practice and go do one-on-ones and to go train. And I'm talking they're putting money together to rent a field or going to a local park to try and train. And these are people that are working in normal work jobs, and they're spending their whatever time they have to go play football. And here we are as Americans, for me personally, sometimes complaining about having football practice, sometimes complaining about, today we have one-on-ones. Dang, I wish we had an easier practice. But for them, they're eating on a lunch break when they were doing camps. People are doing one-on-ones during a water break. It makes my gratefulness, my gratitude for football just multiplied by 10 just because I see people out there playing strictly for the love of the game. Like everybody's going out of pocket just to be able to play football.
And do most of them know who you are?
Yeah, all of them. It's especially being one of a few Filipinos in the NFL balling. It's really Filipino blood runs deep as far as like supporting people. So like when I'm out there, I'll probably get noticed out there in the Philippines more than I'll get noticed walking around in the U.S.
At what point when you were over there, when did you first start going over to the Philippines?
2022.
That was the first time you went over?
Yes, first time.
So what was it that struck a chord with you, not only where you wanted it to be home, but also where you decided that you want to do what you can to help the people over there that are impoverished?
I think just being out there, seeing the people, I think just being able to connect with the community and meeting people was the main thing that made me fall in love with being over there and realizing what I can do as an NFL player and what I can do to help the community out there in the Philippines, and just the magnitude of the little I do, the little I give can go so far out there. So I was like, I feel called to be out there because I know I can make a big difference, and not just about what I can do, but the people make it easy for me to want to go build football, go give back to the people that are dealing with poverty. It's just knowing that I'm so blessed over here, me being able to go help people out in the Philippines, it multiplies our hand of help that we can offer to people, just because money goes a lot further, and there's just less opportunity for them to get help because the country, it's rare that they have big time athletes that are going back to do things or putting on a football camp. Out here, it's every day, every weekend, you're playing football. And for them, it's like a big deal. If there's anything, football, sports, or just simply an athlete going out in the community and helping people that are dealing with poverty.
Cam Bynum is my guest here, of course, safety for the Colts, and the – what do we call it? You prefer green dot guy, communicator guy?
Green dot's probably the
spokesperson.
Yeah, the voice.
Huddle spokes guy.
The guy has to go tell everybody what to do.
When I was in middle school, I was an offensive lineman, and Adele Means and I alternated plays because we had to run the play in.
Oh, so from the sideline.
You know what I mean?
Then you forget it halfway when you're running in there.
That was terrible pressure. You have no idea.
I used to have to do that.
So Burton Florence, thank goodness Burton Florence and Tony Nibbs were really good because I would get in there and I would then choke and I'd forget what play it was.
Exactly.
And so then those guys would just like basically sandlot it at that point, right? That was a huge responsibility. So you have a responsibility here though, right?
I do. Yep. Big time responsibility, being able to.
What happens if you don't understand him?
If I don't, realistically, I'm already coming up with I have to think like Lou. So I think that's why one thing that I've been doing over the past year, even last season, meeting with him every week to understand how he's calling the game. And so even if, say, the mic cuts out, because that stuff happens at times, and we're trying to get hand signals or whatever.
We thought it was going to be C.J. Allen that would do this because he did that at Georgia or like thereof. Was there an explanation as to why it was you that was selected?
No explanation. It was just for me, I just know that obviously it's a lot to put on a rookie's plate, and not saying that he can't handle it. I know he can. He's a super smart player, but I think right now just to minimize the stress on younger guys and somebody for me that I'm already a communicator back there, and I've been, really, really heavy into this scheme already this year and last year. So I think there really hasn't been an explanation, but I just know that Coach knows that I can handle it, and we'll figure it out. But like I said, I don't know if it'll be all year or whatever, so we'll be ready for everything.
Alec Pierce obviously is hurt, right? We know this. We know about Ashton Doolin and what he can do.
Right.
We know about Josh Downs and what he can do. What other receivers, you're there, you're in these drills, you're seeing it. Is there anybody that has jumped out at you and really impressed you from the receiving corps?
Treadwell, over the course of really my whole career, me knowing about him when he was with the Vikings. I wasn't there yet, but watching him when he was in college, and he's in year, I think, 10 now. And he's just such a consistent guy and practices the right way, and somebody that I respect a lot because he's been in the league so long, and he practices extremely hard, and somebody that I know if he gets in a game, whether it's injuries or just rotation, I know that he'll hold it down, and he's a really good receiver, and I know that he can make a lot of plays. And that's somebody that stands out in practice every day to me, the way he works, his consistency, just being a vet.
By the way, before we let you go, I might have told you this a year ago. I can't remember. But with IndyCar, I do play-by-play for IndyCar. And for several years, we had races in Sonoma, which is up near the Bay Area.
Okay, yeah.
And so we would always go to a Cal football game.
Okay.
I saw him play, and I don't recall if you would have been playing in these games or not. I saw him play Texas. I saw him play Ole Miss one year. This might have been right
I was
after.
There.
Okay, yeah.
In 2017?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then now I walked around, and the real thrill for me is I got my photo taken with the Golden Bear mascot.
Okay.
As a prominent alum of Cal, you need to do something about the new mascot outfit.
He's creepy to me. I don't like
he is.
I'm a Cal Bear through and through, but that's one thing. I'm borderline scared of that.
He looks like a 1930s horror movie,
yeah,
right?
And he looks like he's creeping
like
around with his hands behind his back.
Yes.
I'm not letting you near my kid.
He is very creepy, yes.
Right, yeah.
And not only that, but did they buy that at a garage sale? Like it needs to be updated, right?
I think we're sticking too close to tradition with that.
Yes.
We need to move on. Let's at least get an angry-looking bear.
I would agree.
He doesn't even look like a bear in my opinion.
He looks like a stuffed animal toy that has come to life to haunt you.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm glad I'm not alone in that.
I'm glad I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, he's weird to me.
All right, well, Cam, listen, great work on the foundation to help out in the Philippines, and want to certainly be able to help out with it as well. You and I talked about that. That's a different talk show, but certainly appreciate the time today. We wish you the best of luck in getting all of the messages as well.
Thank you for having me. Yep,
everything sound okay in your ear?
Yeah,
here?
it does right now.
Okay, good.
Don't let it be a home game on third down. And
That's right.
I'm struggling to hear.
Want to make sure. All right, Cam Bynum joining us. We'll take a quick recess, come back, and just kind of reset. Stephen Holder will join us eventually and kind of find out everything that took place today. Anything of note take place today, Cam, before we let you go? Anything of note?
Nope. Enjoy middle of camp.
That's good.
Big scrimmage coming up Thursday.
That's
It's
good.
going to be a fun day.
All right.
Fun camp.
There we go.
We're going for it all this year.
Quick recess. We'll be back here. Drop Light Grand Park in Westfield. Colts camp practice number 6. It's Query and Company on the Fan.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company. You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Appreciate the time from Cam Bynum. Also appreciate the time from Eddie Garrison in having to kind of juggle and coordinate there, carrying things over into the top of the hour. That's radio jargon, but really good conversation. And I remember having Cam Bynum on. Eddie, was it a year ago or 2 years ago when I would have had Cam Bynum on?
Well,
was
considering this is only year 2 for him at a Colts uniform.
This is his second year here for him, I guess you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, so it would have been – I was thinking that he was here last year was year 2. But, yeah, that would have been right. They all run together.
I do remember
after a while,
last year, Jake, when you were interviewing Cam Bynum, and he had to say, oh, hold on, pause the conversation real quick. There's somebody over there wearing my jersey, and it's the first fan I've seen in my Cam Bynum jersey. So he went over and signed the kid's jersey.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. And again, great opportunity to come out here. And, you know, they have the weather today. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous outside. It goes without saying, although the humidity is starting to pick up just a little bit. But, you know, people that have been coming out and enjoying it, and now things kind of break down and get set for now what will be later in the day practices out at Grand Park. I thought from Cam Bynum a couple of things that were very interesting there. And good afternoon to you, by the way. If you're just getting out and about for the lunch hour and tuning us in, it is appreciated. My name is Jake Query. That is the voice of Eddie Garrison. It's Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. Cam Blankenship is our engineer that has been here coordinating everything in terms of our broadcasts out here since the opening of training camp. And Nick Cottington is here as well, manning the YouTube feeds for us and all of the videos that you see after the fact from the interviews we do and the people that we talk with. We will be again on the road. This is our last day being out here in camp for these morning sessions. I will be at the Great Indiana State Fair coming up on Friday at the Dairy Bar, and I cannot wait. I love the State Fair. I thought Monday was opening day at the fair, but I'm not sure. Is Friday opening day?
It is Friday,
I've been so caught up in the Colts camp stuff. Friday is the opening day of the fair itself. When I say I like the fair, no. When I say I love the fair, no. I love the fair. Love everything about it. Even though it kind of symbolizes the end of summer, and that does make me sad. But I do love being out at the Great Indiana State Fair. Look forward to that coming up on Friday. But I thought Cam Bynum, in terms of being the defensive communicator, that's an interesting development, only because it was the anticipation, the expectation that was the role that C.J. Allen, the rookie out of Georgia, would have. And when they drafted C.J. Allen, that was the discussion, right, was, hey, that's what he was at Georgia. And typically, as Cam Bynum mentioned there, that is a linebacker assignment. That's part of the job of the linebacker, is being that guy. And so to have that as now a safety and as a defensive back is different. There's no question about that. Now, all of that said, clearly a really smart player and one that is comfortable with and familiar with that defense and everything that takes place before him. So one of the things I can only imagine, I am curious about just, the level of communication that he mentioned there. Lou Anarumo, hey, it's 3rd and 10. They're doing this set. We're going to run this. We're going to run the nickel. Look for this guy, this player. I mean, there's a ton that goes into that. And that's the kind of thing. And you have 15 seconds, right, to just get that out. Also talked at the beginning of the show about the big news in college football. 2 things of note with that. Tom Dienhart joined us earlier today. Purdue is close. We don't know yet officially who it's going to be. But Purdue appears to be on the verge of a hire at athletic director. Tommy McClellan is the name that Tom Dienhart told us is, as of right now, the perceived front runner in that position. Most recently, he was at Rice. He had been at Vanderbilt before that. And those are schools that I think do offer you some perspective or appreciation for what the job would entail at Purdue, because Rice and Vanderbilt both are elite academic institutions whose fan base are, yes, obviously totally in tune to and supportive of their athletic department, but at the same time, the academic prowess is probably as important as anything when it comes to those fan bases. And I think when you look at Purdue, one of the challenges at Purdue versus Indiana, versus Michigan, versus Kentucky, one of the challenges at Purdue would be the fact that you have academic programs that are then sending and basically shotgunning its alum across the country. And if you are a Purdue alum living in Texas or living in Boise or living in Annapolis, you're not as invested in the well-being of your athletic department like if you were a Purdue alum living right here in Indianapolis. And the elite academic degrees that are provided by Purdue cause a further outreach of their alumni base, and I just think that out of sight, out of mind. Sure, if you're a Purdue fan and you're living in those places, you're like, yeah, I want Purdue to do well. Here's a small check. But when you're working in the office of other people that went to Indiana, went to Ball State, went to Kentucky, whatever it might be, and you're living in Indianapolis and you're able to take advantage of games and take advantage of getting the great seats and those things, that's where there's more motivation for that. And so getting somebody that is coming from schools like a Rice or a Vanderbilt that have those same challenges, so to speak, or obstacles, for lack of a better phrase, in terms of their fundraising, I think is very important. So that's the one thing that may help, if in fact Terry McClellan is the guy. The other thing that is big in college football that we found out yesterday, Indiana and Notre Dame. It is Indiana that is dropping Notre Dame off of their pre-conference football schedule, and Notre Dame said, fine, we'll just go play USC instead. So, Indiana said, hey, you know what? We played you in the college football playoff. We're now the national champion. We don't need Notre Dame. And Notre Dame said, fine, we don't need Indiana. We'll just go back to our original girlfriend. And so they're now with USC. Stephen Holder is loitering. I don't know if that means that he's wanting to come on now or he's waiting for me, but I'm just going to throw him on here, basically. You told me, Stephen, I said, hey, can we get you on the show? and you said, after I talk to Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones. I would assume that means that you talked to Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones. I hope I'm not holding you back from that. Daniel Jones, who will be on with the morning show tomorrow morning on The Fan with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd. But let's begin with this. You are free of obligation here, correct?
Yes, I did talk to both individuals.
Okay.
We are good.
To this point, week 2 underway, what jumps out at you, if anything, of a storyline that going into it you didn't anticipate?
Well, I wouldn't say I didn't necessarily anticipate this, but I think it was at least a wee bit of a question. I just talked to Daniel Jones about this, and it's this. He has taken just about every rep that a starting quarterback would take in training camp. I think that is a lot of times what you notice about guys coming back from injury is that they do not do that, right? They are on a pitch count, or they're sort of taking a day off here and there, right, to kind of give them a chance to get their legs back or maybe back off because they've done too much. There's been none of that. He hasn't missed a day. He's taking a really heavy workload in terms of snaps. And I think it's pretty impressive. I mean, if you think about it, last year he was in competition with Anthony Richardson. So he was not sort of owning all of those first-team reps with the first-team offense. This year he generally is. There have been a few here and there, but that's it.
Has he looked different?
No.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
I don't mean from the ankle, the Achilles standpoint. Has his approach looked different, knowing that he is now the incumbent and not the desired starter?
Yeah, I think a couple things that I would say. I noticed probably more consistency. I thought he was good last year in training camp too, don't get me wrong. But I think this year, maybe not as many highs. Like it's not, I wouldn't say he's not bowling you over every day necessarily, right? But that's not really the goal here of training camp. And he doesn't even have, Alec Pierce. He doesn't have his number one receiver, for example, right? So that's a factor. But I would say consistency, right? I mean, he knows where to go with the ball. He is in sync. Look at him and Josh Downs in particular. I think you have to really like what you're seeing from those two guys in particular. That is a tandem that I think we're going to see a lot of this year. Obviously, Tyler Warren's going to get his, right? Alec Pierce at some point, we hope. We'll get back out there and we'll see him.
When would you guess that we will see Alec Pierce on the practice field?
So I think this is something maybe we need to talk a little bit more about, okay? Because the thinking was, a week or two into camp. Well, we're certainly a week in, and as of yesterday, and asking Shane Steichen, what's the timeline? He didn't have one. Doesn't mean that we should, ring the alarm. I'm just saying, until he's back, he's not back.
Right.
Okay? And listen, he didn't have surgery yesterday.
Steven, when he had the surgery, were they upfront about that? Do you think then, if you could, when did he have the surgery exactly?
I believe
right after he signed,
late
right?
March, I believe. Yes.
So late March. So on April 2nd, if you'd have said to Chris Ballard, April Fool's Day is over with, I'm going to put truth serum in you, and it is going to be the first week in August, and Alec Pierce is still going to be on the sidelines. Do you think he would have said, no, yeah, that works?
Interesting question. I think they were at least publicly saying that the belief was he would be ready for the start of training camp at that time. Whether there was any wiggle room, positive or negative, there always is, right? I mean, you can't nail the date 4 months out, right? But I think they were projecting that he would be ready. I think there's always a window, okay? It's like having a baby, right? I mean, what's the due date? Well, does that really mean anything?
Right? I don't know if you know this or not. I have this weird skill where when I see expectant ladies, and you have to make sure it's a slippery slope here. But I will say to them, can I play my favorite game, guess the due date, right?
Okay, how does this play out?
I've been slapped twice. But I have been exactly right 4 times. Ray Cortopassi.
Yeah.
Ray Cortopassi's wife, when I worked with him at Channel 6, I played this game. I was openly mocked because I was a week off. Guess what? Baby, week early. That baby now is out of college. I was just the other day at District Tap. There was it looked probably some sort of a baby shower.
Okay.
And group of girls, and I said, can I play my favorite game, Guess the Due Date? I threw out the due date, and literally in unison, like 12 people, you heard this, like, what the – now –
that one. Here's my question, though. This is fascinating. I will say. Here's my question. Where do you go with this? Like, what are you doing with this talent? Apparently, if you want to call it that. Like,
well, I've got a potential.
What's this get you?
State Fair opens on Friday.
Okay.
There's the possibility. Yeah, I'm in a booth there. Yeah. Now the problem.
Because I think you should try to monetize this.
The problem at the State Fair is 7 out of 10 people you think are expectant actually just there for the food.
Well,
right? So that becomes,
they're in the right place.
That becomes a challenge. But
a lot of roasted corn.
But at any rate, I don't even remember where you're talking now, and so therefore I've
Alec Pierce and his injury,
right.
And it being like a pregnancy
due date. Right. Thank
right.
you. I'm glad that you were still on track.
Obviously relevant.
That's right. But I would not. But my point being,
yeah.
if back then I would not have guessed the due date to be mid-August.
Right. I think there's always like a hopeful aspect to these things, right? Well, it's like if everything goes according to plan, he's going to be back on day X, right? Of course, that's not how medicine works. That's not how the human body works, and so he's not out here. Look, if he gets back here in the next week or so, we can probably move on. I think he's got a month to go, right, at that point before the regular season. But that has to happen, I think, for him to really be him. When you're dealing with a lower body injury, there is an aspect of having to play yourself back into shape, right? I mean, it's not like he's been out here, running 100-yard wind sprints, at full speed, right? I mean, he's dealing with an ankle recovery here, right? So is he going to be in training camp shape?
Will he need those wind sprints to get himself into shape?
I think there's going to be a period of, yes, getting himself into football shape, yes. I fully expect that. I mean, clearly they have experts that are working with him, and they're good at their job. So, I mean, they're doing their best right now behind closed doors, I would assume, to have him be in shape and have his cardio up. And there are lots of things you can do, right, without putting a lot of stress on the ankle. But, again, that is not the same as coming out here in 80-degree weather and running up and down this field against Sauce Gardner.
Do you know one thing that an epiphany I had the other night? I don't know if you know this or not about me, Stephen, but I have a problem with watches, colognes, and sunglasses.
I've heard this about you. Well, not the sunglasses, but the other two, yes.
I usually carry several pair with me. I have a pair on today because it somewhat matches what I'm wearing, and then I noticed yours.
You can never be too prepared.
That's right. I've got the more. This is more old school, right?
Okay.
A little bit lighter.
Aviators going. Nice. Okay.
And I was putting these on, and I looked at the little box here, and I noticed you're wearing Ray-Bans.
Yeah.
Do you know that I'm a month away from 54 years old?
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I was staring at the ceiling. Believe me, it was closed for a while there. And I was staring at the ceiling one night at 3:48 in the morning when it hit me what the name Ray-Ban means. How did I go that long without realizing?
I didn't know I needed to know this, but I feel like I do.
Think about it.
I think I'm missing something.
What is the design of a pair of sunglasses in relation to your eye?
I have no idea what that means.
Sunglasses are not only designed to allow you to look out, right?
They're blocking the sun rays. Is that where you're going with this?
They're banning the rays.
Right. Ban blocked, right.
I had no idea that's the name of Ray-Ban.
Right. You see, and that's the kind of thing that can only come to you at 3:48
right.
in the morning.
Right.
Because who has that kind of time to be thinking about this?
But
except F3:48 in the morning.
But now that I mention it, you'll never know it, right?
No, so how did it take us this long?
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at you and I see the little thing that says Ray-Ban and I think to myself, I don't know that these that I'm wearing are properly banning the rays, and so I put on my Ray-Bans.
Well, good thing I wore these today because we would not have had this very, very important conversation.
That's right.
If not.
Well, the bottom line is this. The Ray-Bans are designed to be a line of defense to your eyes.
No,
right?
that makes sense.
The line of defense for the Colts going into camp was a big talking point of not knowing where they were going to get pressure in terms of getting to the quarterback. Is it possible that what we are going to see is a team that is not able to get pressure on the quarterback but is offsetting that by having locked down corners, and thus that's where your coverage sacks come from?
Well, they certainly hope so, yes. And I would say I think we have seen indications of that. Like there have been some moments in camp where the quarterbacks are holding the ball a tick longer than they want to. And I have no doubt that is because they're up against a challenging secondary. So, whether we can say that is going according to plan, I think it's a little early to say that. Let's see them play. But I see signs and indications that might be happening. The other thing I would say, it's interesting that we're having this conversation today because today I thought was one of the best days we've seen from this pass rush so far. I thought we saw a couple things. Arden Key really, I thought, made a splash today, and I think you're starting to see his impact. I kind of wondered if he might have much of a splash coming in here. I think today was a good sign for that. We saw Jalen Tuimoloau starting to really show some consistency, mostly with the second team. Okay, so I don't want to overstate what he's doing. He's still with that reserve role. But look, I mean, Leatu Latu
was Arden Key signed here to be a mainline player or an insurance policy?
I think initially a mainline player, and then if others come along, then great, right? And I think let's put it this way. Mainline with an asterisk, right? Like, he's not going to play the same number of snaps as, say, Latu, I wouldn't envision. Because I don't think that's his role. I think his role is to handle maybe a slight majority of the reps, but also give way to others and have a rotation in there. There will be a rotation.
See, I think Leatu Latu is going to be a player.
I do too. I do too.
But I don't know what I'm basing that on other than the hope and the expectation at the time of his acquire that he is going to be a player.
Well, I would say there is something to base it on, and I think we've seen a trajectory with him, and that's promising, right? So his first season, I think with four sacks, 4.5. Last season, 8.5. Now, I'm not just basing it on sack numbers. So I'm just saying that if you want a metric, that's a pretty good metric, right? He doubled his number last year. Can he double it again? I'm not looking for 16 sacks, but I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is consistent presence. And look, that is one of the tougher positions. Some guys just come in and they're just so much better than everybody else that they have that God-given ability and they flash right away. Some guys,
but at that position, that's rare, though, right? I mean, even Dwight Freeney took a while to get going.
I agree. There's so much interplay going on that I don't think you always understand. And I'm talking about the blocking schemes that they didn't see in college, the experience of the offensive tackles that they're going up against. I mean, these guys, they have anticipated every move in your book, okay? They've studied you all week long, okay? They've seen a million Leatu Latus, So you've got to, at some point, develop where you can now match wits with those guys. It's not just a physical game. It's a mental game. I think that takes time. And this is year 3. We've seen him work. The other thing about Latu I think is very important. If you spend time around him, the thing I like about him, it cuts both ways. The thing I like about him, though, you talk about a guy who cares. He really, really cares. I have seen him after games where they've lost, and maybe he had an opportunity on a game-winning drive, and he missed it. He didn't get home. And you talk about a guy who's just absolutely just beating the hell out of himself after the game to the point where, he can't even do the interview. I have to, give him time. So I say that cuts both ways because I want him to kind of I think you want a guy who keeps his head, right? But I'd rather that than the guy who's just happy-go-lucky.
Has there been anybody yet that has taken advantage in the wide receiver room of showing what they can do?
Well, the first thing, which is very good news, is Josh Downs, I think, is having a fantastic camp.
I've heard multiple say that.
Yeah, Josh Downs looks
your light's on again. You're going to drain your battery.
I keep doing this.
Well,
I should put it down. I'm fidgety, Anyhow, Josh Downs.
Hard to tell the way it blends in with the brightness of this radio show, Steven. Right?
It does match your shirt.
Come on now. Come on. James Boyd told me this shirt looked good.
No, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Colors are good. I think Josh Downs, as I said, fantastic camp. And the thing about Josh that you're going to see this year is you're going to see, I think, a different look from Josh Downs in terms of how they use him, his role in the offense. We saw him today down on the goal line catch a touchdown from Daniel Jones. By the way, just an unbelievable throw right at the pylon. And, short 2-yard touchdown pass. But I think he was not a guy who was like a go-to guy in the red zone in the past. And I'm not saying he is at 5'9", but the fact that he got involved there right off the bat, I thought that was notable. But beyond that, I think it really is a question of, like, who's going to consistently, sort of come through.
Right.
And that is a little bit more of a question. I think Nate Westbrook-Akine has done it and I think has flashed at times. Laquan Treadwell has flashed, but the truth is, what has Laquan Treadwell done in 3 years? Right? I mean, it sounds mean.
Cam Bynum spoke him up, but they were teammates in Minnesota. So
sure, it sounds mean, right? But I think we're just being realistic, right? And the coaches are probably having the same conversation. I know they are, right? Because they have to. You can't just like rubber stamp a guy because he has a good week of camp. You just can't. I mean, at the end of the day, John Gruden used to say, look at the back of his football card, excuse me. And, it's corny and, like, whatever, but, like, he's right, It's like, what have you done, man?
Right.
And so, anyway, I think that still remains a question, and I still think the Keenan Allen conversation needs to be had. That's what I'd say.
I mean, somebody's going to snatch him up.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, look, here's the reality. It's not even like what they have. It's the eventuality of an injury, the potential of an injury,
right?
Which is like 99% in the NFL.
When we watch these guys that are second unit wide receivers, Stephen Holder, ESPN.com, is my guest here. And again, typically the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, but again, Stephen, you and I, two Schwab guys.
Yeah,
one camera
it works.
shot, right?
It works.
When you look at guys second unit wide receivers that are trying to jump out in this camp, so far, more often than not, if it's not Daniel Jones, then who is it they're using to get them the football? Who has taken more
second unit?
Who has taken more snaps as the second unit quarterback?
Okay, so interesting question because I thought it had been very even. I thought through the first, 3 or 4 days, and then on Saturday we saw a lot of Riley Leonard, and there was a 2-minute drill where he got back-to-back series. And we was like, all right, well, that's notable. And then there were a couple other periods later in later in the practice where he got the edge in terms of snaps over Anthony Richardson. I thought the same was true on Monday. So at that point, it's 2 days in a row. You're thinking, okay, this is meaningful. However, today they flipped that. And Anthony Richardson had the overwhelming majority of the non-Daniel Jones reps. So I say all that to say I think they're relatively even right now, and they are letting this play out, it appears, as they should, because, frankly, I don't know that we have a clear winner.
How did Richardson look?
Today, I thought better. And I thought he threw the ball well. There was a play action. I forget who he threw it to. Burks, actually. A play action, maybe McGowan, I think was in the game. Drops back and, like, off that back foot, drives the ball, on that outside route on the sideline. That's a long throw across the field. Beautiful throw, right on time. And that's the kind of play that he just doesn't make consistently
enough,
right?
But when he does, right?
So, like, can he do that consistently? Now, he has had a problem handling snaps for some reason. I don't know what is going on. We think it's a concentration thing.
But part of that, Stephen, could be who's snapping to him.
Perhaps, yes. That has been part of it. You got a
battle there, right?
That has been part of it.
You got a battle between, was it Morris and Dalton Tucker.
Yeah.
And then who's the other that's battling for the backup?
I think Morrissey.
Jimmy Morrissey, right?
You got to – that is definitely true. But there are also some where he just took his eye off and, like, he's looking up. When I don't know if the snap count's got an issue or something. Maybe he's not expecting the ball at that moment. I can't speak to that. But there have been some where he's just mishandled the ball a little bit. We saw one today. So I think it's just – and Shane Steichen kind of believes this. It's a concentration thing, right? Just like keep your head in the game, right? If you just have one small lapse of concentration. Right. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, what are we even doing, right? I mean, neither one of us have a real job, okay? Let's be honest. Right. So, I think if you have one small lapse in concentration, that's the kind of thing that can happen.
Okay, lastly, before we let you go, Stephen Holder, ESPN.com. I had Cam Bynum on. This is day number 2 now that he has been the green dot communicative guy. Lou Anarumo is speaking to him in the huddle. He's telling him the formation, what they want to go with. This is fairly unusual for a safety, as opposed to we thought it would be C.J. Allen, the linebacker. Are you surprised by that development, if you will?
I didn't anticipate it, but I guess it's not surprising, I would say. And Lou Anarumo did say that he has done this before in Cincinnati. He has used a safety with the helmet communication device. So it is not unheard of around the league. I mean, I have certainly heard this before, and it does make sense, right? I mean, he even said there are times when the back end of your defense is not getting all of the information. So he actually thinks there's even an advantage potentially. But they haven't made the decision on this. They're experimenting right now.
Well, the one thing that would be hard about it, I would think, is unless you have it this way, which could totally be the case, where look, he is the guy that's giving the information, but the linebacker still has the authority and is the one that can audible if he sees something different. Just because that's a long way to go for the guy in the back of the defense to have to get up and communicate to everybody.
He can't.
Whoa,
yeah,
wait,
if he's the deep safety and he's 22 yards down the field, he can't communicate with DeForest Buckner, right?
Right.
So I think it would be a sharing of responsibilities because you would have to still have that middle linebacker involved, right? If you have to shift the run fits or whatever, if the offensive line shifts, right? I mean, you have to adapt, right? All those kinds of things. So, yes, I think it would be a sharing of responsibility between Cam Bynum, theoretically, right, if they do this, between the safety with the helmet speaker and the middle linebacker getting everybody lined up.
So you talked to Jonathan Taylor, you talked to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones will be on the morning show tomorrow morning. Jonathan Taylor, I would assume there was some stuff about contract. We just saw that some contracts are going out with running backs. We'll see what that means for Jonathan Taylor, but I assume that's all of which will be covered at ESPN.com.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, just to kind of briefly preview what he said, he did say he's really happy for other guys. He said, well, I probably should call my agent, so we'll see how that goes.
All right, we'll see what that means. We need some drama, so maybe that's exactly
let's
it.
go.
All right, Stephen, I appreciate the time as always.
Got it.
Stephen Holder joining us here. We'll take a quick recess, come back. Coming up about 20 minutes, we'll check in with JMV, find out what he's got cooking for his program, what he's warming up. Brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, love-hvac.com. Hey there, Jake Wade for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. Surfside, of course, just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, and a variety of flavors. Iced tea with a splash of vodka, lemonade with a splash of vodka. The blueberry lemonade has been a huge seller. And don't forget about Super Light, The sports drinks also brought to you by the fabulous folks at Surfside. Just 90 calories, and again, with no carbonation, oh so smooth and easy to enjoy. Variety packs, individual flavors, whatever it may be, Surfside is the very best. Look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21, and please consume Surfside responsibly.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Thanks to Stephen Holder. And by the way, I'm sitting here, and we're at Drop Light Grand Park up in Westfield for Colts camp, practice number 6, week number 2. And during the practice itself, I looked over, and again, one of the tough things here is while practice is going on from 10 to 11 a.m. every day, and thank you to the Colts for having us out, I can't see what's going on because I'm doing the show here inside the tent. I can see a little of it. And then I look over a lot of times, and I see some of the different media people that are observing, and I think I would like to pick their brain on what it is that they're seeing. And one of them is a guy that has been at WTHR now for, I thought, 2 years, but obviously has made himself at home at Channel 13 and has become a part of the local sports media standpoint. Eli Gain joining us from WTHR. And, Eli, this is camp number 2 for you, though,
Correct.
Right?
Yep, camp number 2.
And you've been in Indy for, I thought 2 years, but we'll just say 18 months. That sound good?
Yep, just north of a year.
Okay,
yep.
So with that, let's begin with this before we get into kind of your story, your observations or what you notice or what you feel. Because I've been kind of the theme here, it's not a bad thing, but from our standpoint, it can be a tough thing, is there's no major drama storyline that jumps out, right? So what jumps out at you?
So what jumps out to me is obviously I really like watching the running back group, and Seth McGowan is pretty much kind of proving everything I was hoping he would be when he came out of UK. I kind of have a soft spot for him because he played at Kentucky where I covered sports for like 7 to 8 years. So like there's that connection there. And seeing him out here making plays and getting more reps and taking advantage of those reps, minus the, small little detail mistakes that's going to come with any rookie at this point. He's the one that I'm looking at right now as the guy who can kind of step in there and maybe take a little bit of a load off with Jonathan Taylor.
When you saw him at Kentucky, Seth McGowan, who was a Colts running back draft pick this year, and I think there was a lot of hope and optimism about the way he plays, but he did come to Lexington with baggage because he had, I think it was Oklahoma.
Correct.
Where he had a legal issue that was pretty ugly. But I've heard that he was a model citizen in Kentucky and that he learned from his error or his ways. Did you get to know him at all?
Not fully. So when he was playing at UK last year, that was my first year where I wasn't there. So when I heard about his story and then when he got drafted by the Colts, I was like, I kind of know a little bit of a background on this guy just because of what you mentioned with what he went through in Oklahoma. He was bouncing around like doing, like dish cleaning jobs just to try to, get back into the NFL or get back into football when he didn't even know if he was going to play anymore. And then just to be able, like the journey that he's taken up to this point. And then I still stay in contact with my colleagues at Channel 18 in Lexington. Shout out my BBN Tonight family of how he composes himself in not taking this second chance for granted. Right. So that's a big relatable thing in my eyes.
Well, Dick Gabriel, who's a friend of mine and is a Kentucky guy, I had Dick on when he was drafted, and he basically said that. Like, look, this guy has done, he learned from his error, right?
Right.
And I can't remember. Do you remember what the charges were at Oklahoma?
I don't remember specifically.
I think it was, I don't know if it was domestic violence, but it was a violent crime, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, he has looked pretty good by all accounts so far in this camp. And I'm not dismissing what it was that he did.
Of course.
I'm saying that atonement has taken place, right,
yes.
before he gets here. Now, obviously, probably a shorter leash. That said, the other big thing that jumps out to me is the wide receiver room.
For
and
sure.
the fact that I mean, do you have eligibility here? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of feels
I
that
might,
way, right?
Yeah, I might at this point with how everything's going. But, yeah, the wide receiver room, and we were kind of talking on it on the sideline with Steven, who you just had on, about, like, when is Alec going to get back out there? Because it's getting to that point now where it's like you thought maybe he wouldn't be in training camp or would join lately, but we're not hearing things.
Well, we're getting into wait a minute category, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of what you worried about after he signed the extension and then the injury happened. So we just waited for a couple months, but now, like, we're here and we haven't really heard, like, where's the progress at? It's just kind of like it is where it is. And so you see him, he is out there. I mean, he's standing, getting those sideline reps in, those mental reps and all that stuff. And then you just look at some of the other receivers, and I know you've probably heard it on here all morning, all last week or so, is just some of those other players getting out there and getting opportunities like Josh Downs and Westbrook Akine, who's looked pretty physical and can fit the part. But, like, how much do you want to put him on the field for production in terms of that aspect?
Westbrook Akine looks to me so far and this was a couple of years ago here, Eli, but what Devin Funchess was supposed to be before he got hurt. Mm-hmm. Just a bigger target, veteran receiver. Not a guy that blows you away, right? But this is assuming that Alec Pierce is in the mix. Downs has looked very good.
Yes.
You expect Tyler Warren's going to be some of those Michael Pittman plays, so we'll see with that. As for you being here just over a year at WTHR, I asked you this ahead of time, and I want to give my own trivia question here. So you're from the Quad Cities, right?
Yes.
You said Quad Cities, Illinois.
Yep.
I'm going to see if I can guess the Quad Cities.
Okay, so it's actually two. So it's Illinois and Iowa.
Well, I knew that. Okay.
Right, so you got
you got Moline, Illinois, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Rockford, Illinois.
Nope.
Okay.
Close.
Okay.
I interned there.
Moline, Illinois.
Yep.
Bettendorf, Iowa.
Correct. Yes.
There's another Davenport, Iowa.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then it's not Rock City because that's the place where they're always trying to get you to go down in Tennessee. Give me the first letter of the last one.
I. Yes. So I'm sorry.
Illinois town, right?
So you meant the first letter of the city itself.
Correct.
It is R. You're on it. You got the rock part.
Rock Island.
Yes, correct. Rock Island.
Really?
Yes.
Rock Island Refinery sponsored my third grade basketball team, but that was on West 86th Street. It's no longer around. Okay, so you grew up in the Quad Cities. I'd like to know this. So you grew up in Moline?
Yes, Moline.
So if you grow up in the Quad Cities, which of the four Quad Cities is the one that most sucks?
I'm going to hate saying this. I'll say Port personally, but I think that's kind of a hot take because I think a majority of the people who refer to the Quad Cities, they look at the Illinois side of the Quad Cities as being the crappier ones.
I think that Rock Island. Rock Island. Come on.
Rock Island has – listen, I just went back –
Alcatraz? You know what I mean?
I just went back home a couple weekends ago for a buddy's golf outing, and it is every time I drive back through there, I'm just like, man, what's happened here? Like, it just seems like it's just,
unfortunately, it's small town America.
Yeah, small town America. And it's just like, so everyone would say that Bettendorf is the best one.
What's the bougie of the four?
Bettendorf, for sure. They have all the successful high schools. They got the money over there. So Bettendorf is the one.
Where's the fresh time in the Trader Joe's? It had to be Bettendorf, right? Because that's where the bougie
have to be Bettendorf.
Is, right?
That is where the bougie stuff is, for lack of a better term.
Right. Okay, lastly, your favorite thing so far after a year. Mm-hmm. So I worked in local TV, Eli, for a number of years, but it was a long time ago. And I'm curious, aside from, the Indy 500 is great, and covering Colts games is great and whatever else. Tell me your favorite thing about covering sports in Central Indiana. And don't say, the people, the fans. I mean,
of course.
The events or the things that are the most fun to you.
I got to say, when I got here, I started the week before the Pacers made their NBA playoff run. I always knew what Indianapolis itself represented in terms of how it puts on sporting events. Like, it's a very, fan-friendly environment and place to be. And then to be able to actually experience all of it firsthand with the Pacers. And then you kind of you sort of branch out to obviously the Colts, and then you have IU making their run and Purdue and all these things. The Final Four being here was a bucket list that I wasn't able to cover with UK because they would always be one of those first or second round upsets. But the venues and how navigable the city is within its sporting events. It just stands out, and everything goes smooth. And I'll shout out to the ushers at Gamebridge Fieldhouse and Lucas Oil. They make everything easier too. So it makes the job that much better when things can run smoothly, because, as you know, we have a lot on our plate a lot of those times.
WTHR will have it all covered, though. You and Dom will have it covered today as well throughout the course of camp, but certainly simply wanted to make the introduction. So appreciate you coming by and saying hi. And I didn't mention the fact that Ed Gein is a crazy serial killer, and it sounds kind of like your name.
I've heard it a lot. Yep.
Eli Gain, not Gein, right? We'll find out what J&B's got going. We'll do it as part of the crossover brought to you by Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com. Other side.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Back for the final time at Droplight Grand Park in Westfield for Colts camp. Things change in terms of the scheduling for Colts camp, so this will be our final time, at least tentatively, for a while with the Colts. And by the way, oddly enough, and I don't know if Cam Blankenship has noticed this, I mean, it's a gorgeous summer day, and it smells like a campfire out here. Like if somebody, I don't know if somebody's like burning something, but you certainly don't anticipate that out in beautiful Grand Park. But it is amazing to me how quickly things do quiet down and just immediately dissipate from here. Now, Eddie Garrison's going to have name tags tomorrow when I'm back in studio because we've been not together for over a week now, as a matter of fact, while we've been out on remote. And thanks to Cam Blankenship for that. Thanks to Tom Dienhart for joining earlier today. Agnes Bynum for the second straight year was absolutely outstanding. And I thought the best part of that and the most fun part of that was having him kind of lay out for us and describe what he hears in the ear from Lou Anarumo as he sits there and now that he is the green dot guy and he's the communicator for the second straight practice, and it looks like it may be for the year, just in terms of the messaging that's heard from the D coordinator to the defense. And Cam Bynum, that conversation available in podcast form along with Stephen Holder and Eli Gain, who just joined me from WTHR. But Bynum in particular, I would strongly encourage you to go back and listen to that conversation. Really fun stuff. And in addition to that, just the overall perspective he gains by living in the offseason in the Philippines, the home country of his mother. Good stuff there. Would ask, of course, that you wait until John's show is complete, either directly before when he goes on the air at 3 o'clock or after when he's done at 6 before listening to all of the various podcasts. Jones will join the guys on the morning show tomorrow morning. Eddie, you have – do not.
You were breaking up there. I couldn't understand what you were saying.
We do or do not have JMV.
I can't track him down. He said he would just be sitting outside the studio, and so I go out there. He's not there. All of his stuff is there. Okay. His phone is sitting there. I walked around the floor, and he's like MIA.
You know, he loses track of time sometimes, does John. He gets there in the building. He goes into one of those studios and locks himself in there, and then to do pre-production, post-production, whatever it may be, and you can at times lose track of him. But I can tell you this. We have
located him.
I do know that – we've located him, okay. I believe that he's got somebody on the show today from the Colts camp that has had a pretty good camp.
Yes.
But he joins us now, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. John, you've got a guy that's red hot, right, that's going to join us on the program today from the Colts?
Hey, Jake, I've got a battery of questions, serious and non-serious. Which ones do you think I'd go with for the 5'6", 156-pound kicker for the Colts? What do you think?
Non-serious. I think he's going to – John, I think he's going to win the job, first off, because –
I do too.
And Spencer Schrader was really good a year ago, and you never want to see a guy lose his job due to injury. But Blake Grupe, from the time – he has yet to miss a kick in this camp, at least unless he did today, and I'm unaware of it. But he was really good yesterday.
He did not, yeah.
He was solid a year ago. I mean, you got to go with the hot kicker, right? Isn't that like a goaltender? You got to stick with the hot one?
Should I mention to him the last time I had a kicker on was Matt Gay, and then we saw what happened there.
Yeah, I remember when I was out here at Colts camp. I remember Matt Gay was supposed to join us, and he came over 3 minutes before the show was over.
Nice.
I'm like, okay, what are we supposed to do with that?
Matt Gay was a big fan,
what
seriously,
are we supposed to do with that?
of Joe's Grill in Westfield. Matt Gay was. Yes, true story right there. But
that's a good spot.
Hey, one more thing, Jake. I've got to mention this to you because you're a historian of things of Indiana. Yesterday, I go to Vincennes, and they still have an operational, one of 15 in America, Ponderosa Steakhouse locations.
Really?
They do.
That's awesome. I can't remember if it was Ponderosa or Sizzler, but Jason Venturi, Rick Venturi's son, Jason Venturi worked at the one in high school.
Yeah.
And we kind of mocked him for it, and then he was like, "Dude, do you know how many single girls go in there?"
Exactly.
Okay, well, there you go. Method of the madness, right? Did you eat at the
No,
Ponderosa?
I went to Texas Roadhouse. I was with my mom. And I had to have a beer, so I had to go somewhere else. Texas Roadhouse.
Understood.
Yeah.
All right. 3 o'clock today,
Yep.
Blake Groupie, among others, that will be joining John. John, we will certainly be listening. Appreciate it as always, and welcome back. Eddie, I'll be back with you tomorrow. State Fair on Friday, but back again tomorrow, 10 a.m. I thank all of you for listening. Again, Cam Bynum, great today. Hope you listen to it later, and I will be back with you 10 o'clock tomorrow on Query and Company.